Hey, welcome to Firescale Audiobooks. If you enjoy our audiobooks, please consider subscribing to the channel. Also, feel free to share your review in the comments section below.
The cries of a child echoed through the half-shattered living room. On his knees, hands pressed to his blood-soaked face, he screamed until his throat went raw. Blood streamed from the hollow pits where his eyes once were. His agony was unbearable, but his tormentor showed none of it. A tall man in a pristine black suit and blue tie stood over him, holding the boy's eyes between gloved fingers as if they were nothing more than fruit freshly plucked from a tree. Not a drop of blood marred his clothes, though his white gloves dripped crimson onto the wooden floor. The massacre was complete. Two mangled corpses lay nearby, their flesh torn and riddled with bite marks. Even in death, their outstretched hands reached toward the boy, a final, hopeless attempt of two parents to shield their child. "Silence him, but leave him alive," the suited man ordered flatly. "It won't be long before he becomes a sleepwalker." A shadow flickered behind the child. A chop to the neck ended his screams, and with a wave of its hand, the shadow sealed the gaping sockets shut. In less than a heartbeat, the boy collapsed face first onto the floor, his blood cooling as his consciousness faded. The last thing he saw in the darkness of his mind was two monstrous silhouettes walking away. One turned back, its twisted grin stretched wider and wider, closing in until, beep, 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 an alarm ripped the nightmare apart. Levi shot upright, drenched in sweat, clutching his pounding chest. His breaths came sharp and uneven until, slowly, he calmed. "The same nightmare again," he muttered coldly. "You're losing your touch. TSK. The rumors were true. You're hard to break, boy." For nightmarish figures emerged from the darkness around his bed, circling him like vultures. To anyone else, Levi was just a blind youth muttering to himself in a darkened room. Levi tilted his head toward the speaker and replied, calm and unshaken. "I'll tell you what I told the others. If you want to contract with me, go through official channels." The creature laughed, jaws unhinging to reveal rows of razor-sharp teeth. "Official channels? You, a blind cripple, daring to dream of becoming a daywalker? Ha! Your comedy itself." Another, shaped like a skinless golden fish, only sighed in annoyance. They all knew Levi wasn't joking. If offered a daywalker pact, he'd seize it instantly. But the first sneered, "No one would stake their legacy on you. A human with no eyes trying to claim the light. Pathetic." With that, the creatures faded, muttering about Ashkral's approach. Levi exhaled, unfazed. "Your loss." He reached to his nightstand, fingers fumbling until he found a small key. Shackles clinked as he unlocked the chains binding his ankles. He rubbed the sore skin around them, his fingers brushing against the cold black monitor strapped there. 100 years after the Great Fall, laws were merciless. Blind survivors, trauma victims, anyone unstable, all were tagged and confined. The night crawlers could invade dreams of those bound to the shadow dimension, and Levi, permanently blind, had been their target for a decade. Night after night, they dangled contracts before him: revenge, sight, power. And night after night, he refused, not out of unshakable will, but because he knew the truth. Their contracts would never bring back what he had lost. He slipped a silver earpiece onto his ear, a neural lens, his only lifeline. "Welcome back, Sir Levi," the AI greeted in its feminine voice. "What can I help you with?" "Give me today's news in tomorrow's settlement," Levi said, feeling along the wall as he walked to the bathroom. The Sunstrike Agency has completed its 20th expedition, reclaiming 15 kilometers of surface territory. Levi allowed himself a small smile. Impressive, as expected from a Tier 5 agency. But his thoughts of joining such ranks were broken by a low chuckle. "Boy, wipe that stupid smile. You'll never be a daywalker. Not today. Not tomorrow. Not ever." Levi didn't need to look. Ashkral was here. The creature's massive crimson eye glared at him, radiating a hypnotic malice that made even Levi's hardened nerves twitch. Levi sighed as he brushed his teeth. "Ashkral, will you ever stop hating?" "Is it hate?" the monster rumbled, "when it's truth?" Levi rinsed his mouth and met the eyeless reflection he knew stared back in the mirror. I know I'm blind. I know I'm a liability. But I also know this. I haven't failed yet. For a moment, Ashcrowl said nothing, his eye glinting faintly. Then, with a cruel chuckle, he whispered, "For a child, your delusion never ceases to amaze me." Levi only smirked. Delusion or not, one day, I'll prove you wrong. Levi had just opened the fridge when his ears twitched. Heavy footsteps thundered toward the front door. Recognizing the gate, he sighed and shut the fridge. Knock, knock, big bro, I'm coming in. Before the words had fully echoed, the door burst open. Filling the frame was Arthur, 6'6", broad as a tank, built like a man twice his age despite being only 16. A year younger than Levi, yet already looking like a divorced middle-aged uncle in a sweat-stained tank top, black shorts, and plastic slippers. The only giveaways of his youth were the innocence in his eyes, a tiny sprout of chin hairs, and the shiny ponytail tied behind his head. In one hand, he carried a grocery bag stuffed with meat and eggs. In the other, a black gym bag. The apartment wasn't much bigger than a studio, so the moment the door swung open, Arthur's gaze fell on Levi. Big bro, making breakfast for us? Arthur grinned, stressing the word. I'm fasting today. Levi brushed past the kitchen, appetite gone, and went to change into training shorts. Arthur frowned, setting the groceries on the counter. TSK, don't be like that. I already ate on the way. Just wanted something light. Light, right? Levi's brow twitched. His brother's appetite was anything but. Arthur was a genetic anomaly, his monstrous build fueled by a diet 10 times a normal person's. Cooking for him was less breakfast and more daily marathon. Arthur sighed theatrically, fishing for sympathy. I even bought you SR pills. You can't cook a simple breakfast for your little brother? Tragic. He lobbed a small orange bottle across the room. To your right, catch. Levi's hand shot out, snatching it mid-air with inhuman precision. Neither of them reacted. It was routine by now. Levi tapped the bottle. I checked our balance last night. We're scraping by till the welfare hits. How did you afford this? Arthur shrugged, unpacking groceries. Did some coaching at the gym. Weird rich girl. Levi raised an eyebrow. Weird how? You're always the weirdest one in the room. She's bald. Levi paused. Bald? Arthur chuckled under his brother's silence. By choice. Calls herself Monk Jojo. Always causing scenes with her bizarre training routines. What's a monk? Levi asked, genuinely curious. Arthur cracked eggs into a cup. Beats me. Didn't bother asking. She paid me 1,000 lumen credits for 1 hour. Honestly, I'd have done it for 100. 1,000. Levi allowed himself a faint smile. That was enough to keep them comfortable for weeks. Food was expensive in this age. After the Great Fall, night crawlers targeted anything that absorbed sunlight. Plants, animals, humans. Natural food had become scarce, priceless. Levi sat cross-legged on a training pad in the living room, poured 5 pills into his hand, and swallowed them dry. Arthur caught the tossed bottle, but his eyes lingered on his brother's scar back as Levi dropped into flawless push-ups. Arthur's chest tightened. Those claw marks never let him forget. Your heartbeat slowed, Levi said without looking up. Stop feeling guilty for something you couldn't control. Arthur smiled bitterly. I know. Still feels shitty. He had been safe in the capital that night, left with their uncle, while Levi followed their parents to Tamara's settlement, where everything ended. Arthur was only 6, helpless, but that knowledge never eased the weight of absence. Well, feel shitty somewhere else. You're interrupting my workout. Harsh, as always. Arthur set breakfast on the table, then fixed Levi with a hard stare. Why are you so stubborn? Just live. Stop forcing yourself to chase revenge. I'll handle it. I'll get your vision back, whatever it costs. Levi froze mid-push-up. Slowly, he raised his head, scorched scars hidden beneath his hair. His voice was flat. I lost my peace 10 years ago. As if summoned, 6 night crawlers manifested around him, their hungry gazes clinging like tar. They had been jeering since Arthur arrived, but Levi had long since mastered the art of ignoring them. Arthur noticed a shift. How many? 6. Got it. Arthur closed his eyes, ready to dive into the shadow dimension and stand beside his brother. No need. Levi smiled faintly. I'm heading out soon. You sure? I just want to give them a piece of my mind. They're not worth it. If they had anything better to do, they wouldn't be here. Levi turned his gaze toward the hovering creatures. Talking trash about us again, boy, one sneered. They're jobless bums, Levi replied dryly. Too weak to pledge to a nest, too bored to stay out of my house. Laughter erupted, until one hulking night crawler resembling a rotting eggplant with worms squirming across its skin hissed, "Don't mistake restraint for weakness, human." Then prove me wrong, Levi said, unbothered. From the corner, Ashcrowl chuckled. The sound alone silenced the room. The eggplant-shaped crawler turned on him, snarling. What's so funny? Ashcrowl didn't answer. He just rolled lazily until his massive crimson eye locked on the crawler. The worm-ridden creature froze, then screamed. Mercy! Its worms scattered, fleeing like plague. The crawler's spirit unraveled into nothingness, devoured by its own terror. The others averted their gaze, cowed into silence. Even Levi kept his head down, resuming push-ups. Ashcrowl yawned. That's what I thought. And just like that, the tension dissolved back into quiet. After Levi was done with his daily workout routine, he went to take a quick shower, uncaring that a crowd of monstrous nightmares was seeing his private parts. As for what happened earlier, he was already used to it. Levi wasn't given the creeps by Ashcrowl for no reason. He had seen him do unspeakable things to night crawlers, provoking him quite often until he built a reputation around him. Unfortunately for the eggplant night crawler, he knew no better. On the other hand, while Ashcrowl always teased and bothered Levi, he had never invaded his dreams or assaulted him. When Levi was done with his shower, he walked to the closet with one hand stretched forward, counting as always. His hand touched the automatic closet, and with the press of a button, it opened to a specific set of clothes that were identical to each other. Black pants and a white t-shirt with a baggy hoodie. It was like he had no interest in fashion and just wanted to be as comfortable as possible. After putting on his clothes, he wore standardized white sneakers, which had become somewhat dirty. Then, he put on black sunglasses with a circular design and closed the closet. As he reached the door, he slid his hand to the side and picked up an average white cane. However, the moment he unlocked the door, Arthur was already next to him in the same outfit and a half-eaten banana stuffed in his mouth. Where are we going? Arthur asked with his mouth full, seemingly uncaring about hijacking his brother's alone time. Seeking a recommendation letter for the contract ritual assembly. Levi answered calmly. This again, Arthur wasn't in the mood to argue about this subject again. He had already said and did everything to stop his brother from participating in the contract ritual assembly with him. It wasn't that he didn't believe in him, but he knew that one of the main prerequisites of becoming a daywalker was to have eyes that possessed a great resistance to sunlight. There was a fine line between having great resistance to light and being completely immune to it. In Levi's case, the only way to absorb light was through his skin or by eating growth totems. Both methods were quite inconsistent compared to using one's eyes to stare directly into the sunlight. For humans, light was just, well, light, but for night crawlers, it was their main source of growth and evolution. It was everything to them. However, they were cursed to desire it, but have no resistance to it directly. In other words, if they wanted to feed on light, they had to do it in 4 ways. Feed the light absorbed by plants, feed on humans or animals directly, or sign a contract with a human to possess his body. While the first parts were self-explanatory, the last one was where it got tricky, as night crawlers could either sign a beneficial contract for both parties or a one-sided contract in favor of each party. Of course, it was almost impossible for a night crawler to sign a contract that disadvantaged it. This left us with night crawlers attempting to seduce the mentally weak humans to hand over their bodies for a cheap price of either quick revenge, destruction, or such evil desires. Those sorts of contracts gave birth to sleepwalkers, humanoid monsters with the ability to shapeshift and move in both light and darkness. But when a beneficial contract for both parties was signed, a daywalker was born. In Levi's case, he was considered a muggle just like every other blind person in the world, having the worst possible talent to grow as a daywalker. Brother, even by some miracle we obtained a recommendation letter from an established agency and you were allowed into the ceremony. What are you going to do at the last part of the ritual? Arthur smiled wryly. You know that at the end of the day, it's the Nightcrawlers who are choosing their potential partners, not us, at least for the less talented. In your case, the Nightcrawlers won't see much value in the amount of light you absorb daily. I would hate to see you get rejected by those ugly F***ers in front of everyone. If I get rejected, so be it, but one step at a time, one step at a time. Levi seemed unbothered by this many odds stacking against him. Odds were enough to break even a normal citizen down and force him to quit before starting. But not Levi. For him, he would never rest in peace until he met the two Nightcrawlers of his nightmare. By the way, shouldn't you be in school by now? Levi's voice suddenly turned stern, sending shivers down Arthur's spine. He might be 6 inches tall and built like a tower, but before Levi, he was always the little brother, even when there was a mere 1-year difference. Come on, Levi. We have only 1 month left before the semester ends, and also the contract ritual assembly is in 2 months. With my sexy physique, I am bound to pass the trials and become a certified daywalker. Arthur tried to appease his brother. School will be useless, then, as I will be joining the Grand Daywalkers Training Center. Levi went silent, knowing that his brother was speaking tons of sense. For normal commoners, high school and college were still a must to secure some resemblance of a good future. But for those aiming to become daywalkers, they got trained from birth on almost everything. Sometimes, it still wouldn't be enough to become one. One would wonder why was a daywalker's occupation so coveted. It was simple. Daywalkers were the heroes of today's age, the guardians of humanity, the only ones slowing down the encroachment of darkness, and most importantly, the most authoritative beings in the entire world. Almost all the Holy Region's governors were powerful daywalkers capable of creating miracles with a snap of a finger. In this age, there was no such thing as a commoner politician. Thus, becoming a daywalker would set anyone apart from the herd. Yet, the biggest upside of becoming a daywalker was their ability to sleep whenever they needed to, since the contracted Nightcrawler would protect them from others' invasion. While Arthur's words made sense, Levi still said with a lowered voice, Arthie, don't argue with me. I don't want you to stay in school for a grade. I just want you to gain knowledge. Don't forget, there is also a trial for intelligence in your precious plan. Are you insulting my intelligence? Huh. Arthur seemed annoyed. Just because I have big muscles doesn't mean I am dumb. What's 7 multiplied by 8? Levi asked with a serene tone. This cough, 100 and... Maybe you should stop hitting weights and start hitting in books. You will bring shame to our family name during the assembly. Levi interrupted with a vexed sigh. Not if you were there. Arthur roasted back with a wide grin. Asshole, you know it's frowned upon to abuse the disabled? Levi chuckled. So be it, go or something else. We might be out for a while. Where are we going? Borders. Borders? Arthur laughed. Smart. We have already gotten kicked out of every private agency in the settlement. We might as well visit their daywalkers at the borders. But how are we going to enter the outposts? Don't worry, I have it covered. As Arthur walked outside of the apartment complex, feasting his eyes on the breathtaking scenery of Tamara's settlement, Levi was met with a sea of Nightcrawlers floating all over the place, hunting down new traumatized victims and waiting for any Stygian gates to open up. Unfortunately for them, there wasn't an ounce of darkness in the settlement, as it was entirely built to limit the Nightcrawlers' access. That's because portals linked to the Shadow Dimension opened up only after 15 minutes passed in an area completely pitch dark. This pushed all the holy regions to design the cities with glass roofs on buildings and place synthetic protective light in every nook and cranny. This ensured that during the day, it was nearly impossible for any Stygian gate to open up and cause an invasion right at the heart of the settlements and capital cities unless there was some foul play. Of course, there was an entire department responsible for supervising the quality of the synthetic light network across each city. As for the night and underground's darkness, For now, let's say humans were protected by divine intervention. Meanwhile, Levi and Arthur rode on an electric dirt bike and drove towards the borders, skiving off cars and pedestrians, unbothered by their curses at Arthur's reckless driving. After driving for a short while, they reached the outskirts of Tamara's settlement, traveling on top of beautiful yellow wheat fields while the sunlight shone brightly on their skin. A few people were sitting on top of trees or the center of the fields in a meditation position while having their eyes affixed on the radiant sun. Levi and Arthur paid them no attention, as it was a common occurrence for daywalkers to absorb direct sunlight in open natural fields. The peace, the wind, the smell, and the lack of buildings helped them be more attuned to their bodies and their shadow life seed. It must be a clear sky today. Feeling the warm light, Levi couldn't help but raise his head, seemingly wanting nothing more but to gaze at the breathtaking blue sky. But all that was reflected was eternal darkness and the ugliness of the night crawlers crowding the skies. Although the noise buried Levi's voice, Arthur held Levi's hand and pointed his finger at specific places in the sky. Then, he started describing with a foolish, happy smile. There's a cloud there that looks just like a massive sword. Right next to it, another cloud resembled a headless turtle. The other one, it looks like that thing we use to unclog toilets and sinks. What is called plunger. Levi smiled. Plunger. Yes, it totally escaped my mind. Arthur laughed and continued describing anything interesting that he saw on the way. While his vocabulary was weak, his brother always guessed what he meant, seemingly reading his thoughts. Levi might have gone blind at 7 years old, but this didn't stop him from reading and knowing about the world. In fact, it made him focus on nothing but reading, knowing that it was the only way for him to draw the world in his mind. After a short while, the Larson brothers arrived at the borders of the Holy Heliodor region. Tamara's settlement was one of the few settlements in the region situated extremely close to the borders. That's why it was populated with many branches of high-tiered daywalkers agencies in the capital. We are getting close to the sun disk towers. Arthur shared as he gazed at tens of tall towers, reaching up to 200 meters each. Each tower was separated from the other at a great distance, surpassing many kilometers. Levi and Arthur knew that those towers surrounded the borders of the Holy Heliodor region in a massive circle, mirroring the movement of the Holy Pillar. Those towers were powered by sunlight and possessed gigantic mirrors able to reflect concentrated beams of sunlight in 360 degrees, turning them into killing machines for night crawlers at the borders. Arthur drove to the nearest tower and was forced to stop at the heavily guarded gates of the outposts surrounding the tower. There was already a long queue awaiting their turn to be checked by the guards, as no one was allowed entries to those outposts unless they were certified daywalkers or approved citizens. Levi and Arthur were neither, leaving them to park their dirt bike at the side of the outpost walls and watch the moving queue. While Arthur was scanning the daywalkers from the citizens, Levi was eyeing the contracted night crawlers, each hovering in a small radius, staying near their partners. Before long, Levi's presence attracted the majority of the night crawlers, and they all switched their attention to him. A rocky hog with gleaming green cracks, piercing blue eyes, and two thick tails moved towards Levi and wondered with a hint of scorn, "Is this the infamous soulless gaze? He doesn't look the part. Were the rumors inflated? Doubtful. There is only one infamous blind kid in this area." A hulking insect-like beast with a hardened exoskeleton and amber eyes commentated calmly as he kept floating around Levi. While Levi was surrounded on both sides, he didn't bother to glance at these two night crawlers. He kept his indifferent sockets affixed on a hazy serpent manta hybrid with shimmering red scales and a long tail seeping with blood. Soulless gaze, a child with an unbreakable mental and a gaze as hollow as an abyss. The serpentine nightcrawler uttered near Levi's ears, "I heard you were begging for any nightcrawler to make you a daywalker. Is that still the case? Why are you asking? Are you planning to refer me to your friends?" Levi whispered with a faint smile. Arthur saw his brother talking to himself and knew immediately that he was conversing with nightcrawlers. Although his brother didn't tell him what he planned on doing, he trusted that he had it covered. It was for a simple reason. Arthur had never met with someone as shrewd and smart as his big brother. That's why he respected him and listened to whatever he told him to do, knowing that it would always be for his good sake even if he didn't understand it at the time. Meanwhile, Levi's comment left the three night crawlers to chuckle in amusement. The rumors told no lies. You have no shame when it comes to securing a contract. Shame doesn't pay the bills. Levi still had the same smile. Shame won't get me my peace and vision back. So, how about we drop this meaningless shakedown and get to business? Business? Bleeder narrowed his eyes menacingly, but with a hidden hint of intrigue. What does a hairless child know about business? I know that your partner is trying to help you evolve to Tier 3 through a remarkable evolution. Levi's tone became serene as he gazed straight into Bleeder's eyes. The chuckles died off, and the amused expressions melted away. The three night crawlers all stared at each other with a tinge of surprise before finally looking back at Levi, this time with penetrative cold gazes. Boy, you have 3 seconds to tell me your source of information before I slice your neck off. Bleeder's voice turned sinister. Levi knew that his threat was for real since he was a contracted night crawler, which meant his partner wouldn't hesitate to pull the trigger if she found out that their private information was leaked. Still, he was unfazed. Calm down. I have deduced your plight on my own. Levi clarified with a relaxed tone. This outpost leads to the harrowing forest, the only place in the entire Northern Africa district with a compatible soil for the blood crystal flowers to grow in. I know that your species requires either blood crystal seeds for a limited evolution or the blood crystal flower for a remarkable evolution. He paused. While the seeds can easily be obtained, the blood crystal flowers sprout only at the depths of the harrowing forest. It was off grounds before due to being ruled by a shadow castle. But with the Sunstrike Agency clearing it, the forest finally became somewhat safe for rogue and low-ranked daywalkers to explore it. I believe the three of you are part of the same daywalker squad on a mission to locate the flower, as you don't seem interested in having a mere limited evolution. Do I need to say more? When he finished, the three night crawlers were left somewhat dazed, realizing that Levi had hit the nail on the head about almost everything. Seeing their reaction, Levi went silent for a moment and leaned closer to Bleeder until his mouth was next to his ears. Then he whispered, "What if I told you that I know a way with a high chance of helping you secure the unattainable perfect evolution? Get the F*CK out of here." Bleeder immediately pulled away from Levi like he had just heard the worst joke to grace his ears. Perfect evolution? Boy, you don't have to bullshit us. We ain't going to help you get contracted. Ha! Perfect evolution, he said. Bleeder and Shia are struggling to even pull off remarkable evolution. The other two night crawlers also snickered at Levi's remarks, not taking him seriously in the slightest. Their reaction was understandable. Night crawlers were believed to be separated into 9 tiers, starting from Tier 1 and reaching their final form at Tier 9. Since night crawlers were considered a race with an unknown number of species and variants, some were born as low as Tier 1, and some were believed to be born straight as Tier 9, though no one could be certain about the latter. The only certainty was that every single night crawler was capable of evolving to its final form, whether it ended at Tier 5, 6, 7, or even 9. The little evolutions along the way controlled the final form's limitation. Those mini evolutions occur between each tier and could range from a limited evolution to a remarkable evolution and, finally, a perfect evolution. In simpler terms, if a Tier 1 Nightcrawler evolved to Tier 4, using nothing but limited evolution each time, his final form might have been completed at Tier 4 forever. On the other hand, if a Tier 1 Nightcrawler grew using nothing but perfect evolution between each tier, there was a strong chance that its potential would be finalized at Tier 8 or 9. The only problem with the second method was the difficulty. It was so high that only a select few dared to follow this treacherous and unknown path. You can laugh all you want, but you guys do realize that I have been associating myself with thousands, if not tens of thousands of Nightcrawlers across a decade. Levi replied with his known unprovocative smile. Don't you think I might have heard something useful here and there? Bleeder and the other night crawlers shared knowing glances, realizing that Levi had a point. The main concern with perfect evolution was the lack of knowledge. While limited and remarkable evolutions also required many trials and errors before a known evolutionary path was discovered, perfect evolutions were on a whole different level. For instance, bleeder species were of the blood half mantras, and they were known for requiring blood crystal seeds as the main material and a couple more secondary materials to succeed in limited evolution for the first 3 tiers. The blood crystal flowers as the main material for the remarkable evolution. Both evolutionary paths were discovered by the greatest evolutionist, Dr. Isaac Mendel. He was also responsible for discovering many of the evolutionary paths for thousands of other night crawlers, helping the daywalkers grow more powerful than ever. However, even though he was one of the brightest minds in this era, he had found only 100 perfect evolution paths in total. Those evolutionary paths usually last for 3 tiers or fewer. This spoke volumes about how difficult a process it was. Why are you telling me this? Bleeder narrowed his eyes. Let's say you're being truthful. What do you gain from this? If you want my help to get you a contract, then forget it. I don't have that much sway. Don't be jumping to conclusions. Levi said calmly. All I want is a written recommendation letter to participate in the contract ritual assembly. Recommendation letter? You want our agency to sponsor you in the assembly? Bleeder and the other nightcrawlers raised their eyebrows in surprise. Yes. Realizing that Levi was as serious as one could be, the 3 nightcrawlers couldn't muster a single bad remark. There was a point when mockery lost its value. Soulless gaze, I don't know if you are simply crazy or a fool who is yet to be slapped in the face. Bleeder shrugged his wings. To be honest, I don't give a shit. If your information is right, I will get you the recommendation. That's all I want. Levi smiled. Bleeder gave a slight head nod to his buddies, and then they returned to their partners, relaying the news to them. Arthi, check for a 3-member squad in the queue holding their weapons, and tell me what they are doing. Levi requested while leaning against the dirt bike, gazing at the 3 night crawlers, who had just disappeared out of his sight and turned into humanoid hazy auras. He knew that contracted night crawlers could jump between the shadow dimension and the real world whenever they desired. However, they could not coexist in both of them simultaneously. Their current spiritual aura forms implied that they had taken their physical weapon form to join the conversation. It wasn't like they couldn't speak with their partner without being in the shadow dimension, but they could only converse telepathically. As expected, Arthur swiftly located 2 men and 1 woman huddled in a small area, conversing amongst each other while looking in their direction. All 3 of them had their signature weapons out. They keep pointing at us while talking, Arthur described. The 2 men don't seem too pleased while the woman looks like she is trying to convince them of something. I see. What did you do? Arthur asked, curious. Levi informed him about the details of the deal, leaving his brother with his eyebrows raised in surprise. When he finished, Arthur asked him again, do you really know his Tier 3 perfect evolutionary path? Of course not. If I did, I would have sold it long ago. Levi replied. Mom's textbooks never went into exact details on each nightcrawler's evolutionary path. Arthur stared at his brothers speechlessly. Knowing that his little brother was questioning his decisions, Levi turned to face him and said calmly, sometimes a risk has to be taken to move forward. Risk, brother, if you were found lying to 3 daywalkers while already being under surveillance. No one would care if you got killed. Arthur said with a hardened tone while eyeing Levi's beeping ankle monitor hidden under his trousers. I know, but don't worry, if I didn't have it covered, I wouldn't have included you. You know I don't give a shit what happens to me. Arthur narrowed his eyes at the approaching squad. Do your thing, I got you. Before Levi could reply, Arthur tapped him twice on the shoulder, silencing him immediately. This was their signal of people being too close to Levi's comfort. A moment later, a delicate short girl stood in front of Levi and Arthur while being accompanied by a tall, dark-skinned man and a short man with a big belly. The girl had short hair that resembled a crimson blood drop and was wearing thin orange sunglasses. She had a skin-tight red suit, covered with a half-open black jacket. She had her hands inside her jacket's pockets while sucking on a lollipop with a white plastic stick. While Levi couldn't see her appearance, The smell of blood on her was too stinchy. He couldn't help but scrunch his nose. The girl saw his reaction and didn't seem bothered. In fact, she was amused by it. "Not a fan of my smell?" she asked. Her voice was as lovely as her face. "My apologies, my nose is a bit sensitive," Levi said politely. "Understandable for someone with your condition." Shia spoke as she kept moving her head from side to side, seemingly incapable of believing Levi's condition. When she saw that his head was affixed in its place, she couldn't help but utter with a hint of marvel in her voice. "How interesting. I thought everyone with complete blindness had already gone extinct or had eye replacement surgery," Shia murmured to herself, but Levi heard her as loud as thunder. "Shia, we have no time for this. Night is fast approaching, and if we want to reach the depth of the forest before sunset, we have to move now." The short man spoke coldly as he gazed at the Larson brothers. "From first sight, I can tell they are full of it." Suddenly, a crimson crescent-bladed glaive with a curved blade came out of Shia's black jacket, exuding an ominous, bloodthirsty aura. The moment everyone's eyes affixed on it, Bleeder's mouth and eyes manifested on the weapon. He didn't seem pleased one bit. "Fatty, are you questioning my judgment?" he asked coldly. "Yes. When was your judgment ever right?" Just as Bleeder was about to snap back at him, Shia intervened. "Sergio, Bleeder, we have already discussed this. Let's find out what kind of information he has, and then we can make our judgment." Uncaring that Levi and Arthur heard her, Shia showed them a pleasant smile and said, "We don't have much time, so let's carry our conversation inside. Please lead the way." Levi smiled back. A few moments later, Shia's squad had gotten inside the outpost and brought Levi and Arthur with them. The guards allowed them in since they belonged to a quite well-known agency in the Holy Heliodor region. Of course, they had to pay up a fee. "Whoa, this place is packed with daywalkers," Arthur exclaimed as he kept spinning his head all over the place, leaving no area unscanned. Meanwhile, Levi was also receiving information from his NeuroLens AI, as she was able to scan a 10-meter radius and give Levi detailed descriptions of everything in the radius. With her help, he was able to envision the appearance of the outpost. It wasn't anything special, as it resembled a small town, with mostly transparent glass-based buildings arranged in a perfect structure that allowed all the streets to meet at a single point. The center of the outpost where the tall sun disk tower was built. After a short walk, Shia and her companions brought the Larson brothers to a motel room for some privacy. Then, Shia sat on the bed while the other two stood near the corners. Levi and Arthur were offered chairs and herbal tea while facing Shia directly. "Now, will you kindly tell us how you plan on helping Bleeder achieve perfect evolution to Tier 3? Shia asked with a kind smile. In the hopes that Levi's information would be correct, she was respectful, kind, and understanding. However, Levi knew that her nice attitude was a mere facade. "Hold on now. How will be assured that you will keep your end of the bargain if I spill the beans?" Levi asked. "Fair enough." Shia brought out Bleeder and placed it in front of them. Then she said, "I am willing to sign a nocturnal contract." Sergio and Jamal's expressions immediately turned gloomy. "Shia," before they could say anything, Shia silenced them with a hand wave. Then she turned back to Levi and smiled. "If your method checks out, I will risk my own neck and reputation to ensure that you participate in the contract ritual assembly. We will have this written in nocturnal contract." Levi corrected her with a similar smile. "Not any contract ritual assembly. I'm only interested in the upcoming one in 2 months." Of course, that's what I meant. While she said this, the thoughts in her mind were different. He might be young, but he isn't easily fooled. Without further ado, Shia tapped once on her signature weapon, and a pitch-black spiritual piece of paper manifested before everyone. It floated at the center, turning the atmosphere quite solemn. This was a nocturnal contract, the sole reason nightcrawlers and humans had a chance of coexistence. No one knew of its origins besides a false name for its creator. Not even high-tiered nightcrawlers had a clue. The only thing known was that its terms must be respected at all costs, as the moment both parties signed the contract, their souls were bonded by it. If a party were to void a term, the contract would deliver the written penalty instantly. It possessed such an overwhelming and mysterious authority that its presence always commanded attention. Just as Shia was about to write the terms, Levi interrupted with an apologetic smile. Before we sign, I have to confess something. God damn it, I knew he was full of shit. Sergio snapped instantly. Boy, were you lying to me? Even Bleeder's expression turned sinister. Hold on, give him a chance. Meanwhile, Shia still had hope in Levi, halting her partners from doing something that would jeopardize the deal. Thank you. Levi nodded politely and then explained, First of all, I have never guaranteed that my method will succeed 100%. All I said was that I have a method to help him achieve the unattainable perfect evolution. Whether it succeeds or fails, it depends heavily on your cooperation. What do you mean? Shia held her chin in intrigue. I have my ways, and at the moment, I have no interest in sharing details. Levi said calmly, If you truly desire perfect evolution, all you can do is put your trust in me. Trust? Shia stood up and walked to the reflective glass wall. As she gazed at the rogue daywalkers forming exploration squads in front of the outpost's exit, she shared with a serene voice, In our world, trust has lost its value. Everyone and everything requires the addition of nocturnal contracts. Even a lifelong partnership with our contracted nightcrawlers can only work when our life and death are bound together. She turned to face Levi and added, You also know this. Otherwise, you wouldn't have accepted the use of a nocturnal contract. Levi nodded in agreement. So, I can tell you right here, I don't trust you, but I do trust that you will give it your all if you put your life on the line. With the same kind smile, Shia asked, So tell me, are you confident enough in your method that you are willing to sign off your life to me in case you fail? Levi went silent. He understood that Shia wanted him to sign off a lifelong subordinate contract, which was nothing but a fancy name for a slave. With the introduction of nocturnal contracts and their absolute power, slavery became quite rampant in the world. Of course, since the term was frowned upon, it was changed to a lifelong subordinate. Since only entities with shadow life seeds could summon the nocturnal contract, most daywalkers had several lifelong subordinates under their name. Brother, you won't sign such crap, right? Suddenly, Arthur's solemn voice resounded in Levi's ear, coming from the earpiece. Since it was attached straight to the ear, the messages sent were heard solely by the owner, unless there was someone with extremely sensitive ears nearby. Levi merely showed him a comfortable smile, unfazed. Arthur knew that his brother couldn't use holograms, so he was unable to send a message or a vocal without being heard by their company. Okay, although Arthur was quite bothered by the whole deal, all he could do was put his trust in his brother. Facing straight ahead, Levi asked, May I ask why you want me to work under you? His question resonated with Sergio and Jamal as they also gazed at their friend Shia, wondering what she wanted from a blind kid. I don't know yet. Consider me intrigued. Shia licked her lower lip. It's quite rare to find someone with complete blindness, still alive and sane. While her answer left her partners somewhat speechless, realizing that she was seeing Levi as a plaything, it didn't bother Levi. Fair enough, he replied calmly. I'm willing to approve these terms. The moment he said this, silence engulfed the motel room. Even Shia was a bit taken aback, raising her eyebrows in surprise. She expected him to negotiate the contract, understanding that her terms were quite extreme. She knew that securing a perfect evolution was nothing but simple. She had low hopes that a blind teenager would help her achieve it, even if he were to hear something from the nightcrawlers hanging around him. After all, how would he know for sure that it would work? But now, everything changed. Your confidence gives me hope. Shia's eyes gleamed in excitement under her sunglasses. A few minutes later, the contract terms were finalized, leaving both parties somewhat satisfied. In the case of Levi, he made sure to include 3 big terms. Firstly, Arthur would not be harmed or affected by her party whether Bleeder's evolution succeeded or failed. Secondly, if the evolution went through as anticipated, Shia had to ensure that Levi joined the contract ritual assembly in the next 2 months regardless of the cost. If she failed to deliver, she would pay 10 million lumen credit to Levi. This wasn't all. She had to attempt sponsoring him for the next years until he successfully joined. Each year she failed, she had to pay him the same amount again. This condition was extremely harsh, as 10 million lumens wasn't an amount any daywalker could produce easily. Only high-ranked or rich daywalkers could afford such a penalty. Third, if he were to succeed, they must not speak of this deal with anyone or mention his name. In other words, this was a one-time deal. After the terms were written in luminous ink on the nocturnal contract, Shia went first and signed her full name at the bottom. When she finished, she extended her palm at the contract. Her eager smile couldn't be maintained. "Excuse me, is it possible to have 10 minutes with my little brother?" Levi suddenly requested with a soft smile. "I would like to put his mind at ease." "Little brother?" Shia tilted her head in confusion and then glanced at the agitated mountain behind Levi. "That's your little brother?" Jamal's eyes widened. "Are you messing with me? He looks older than us." "Yes, he is 1 year younger than me," Levi replied calmly. "The hell? Are you telling me this behemoth is still a teenager?" Sergio gulped a mouthful as lifted his head to look at Arthur's face, almost breaking his neck in the process. "Guys, this is not the time." Although Shia was just as shocked as her partners, she still brought back the conversation to the more important subject. "You can have 5 minutes tops." She approved and walked to the room's door, followed by her squad mates whose dumbfounded eyes never left Arthur. "That will do." Levi nodded in appreciation. The moment the door was closed and Arthur saw them keep a respectful distance, he immediately turned to face Levi. "Big bro, what's your next move?" he asked. "Did you find Bleeder's perfect evolution?" "How could I?" Levi chuckled. "I never left your sight." "Levi, how can you laugh in this F***up situation?" Arthur scratched his head in agitation, trying his best to understand his brother's angle, but failing miserably. While he wasn't the brightest of minds, he had read the terms of the contract. There wasn't an ounce of play work or fine print in the terms. In other words, unless Levi genuinely produced a method to help Bleeder's evolution, he was cooked beyond reproach. "Arthur, relax." With the same serene smile, Levi said, "While I don't know the answer, I know who does." "Huh? What do you mean?" Arthur lifted his head in confusion, but Levi's attention was already on someone else. "Ashkral, don't you think it's time we are done with foreplay?" he asked as he gazed at the infinite darkness before him. Surprisingly, not a single nightcrawler had invaded Levi's personal space, even though he was in an outpost packed with daywalkers. It was all because of one entity. "Boy, I don't swing that way." Ashkral emerged from the darkness, his sinister crimson eye manifesting first akin to the awakening of a slumbering devil. "I don't think we have time for jokes." Levi tapped on his wrist twice and said calmly, "We have 4 minutes and 30 seconds to negotiate our Daywalker contract terms." "Boy, have you finally gone mad?" Ashkral twisted himself around Levi akin to a serpentine without touching him. He brought his menacing slit in front of him, seemingly trying to read out Levi's motives. "Ashkral, please don't insult my intelligence." Levi said composedly, "I may not have eyes, but my observation skills aren't to be underestimated." "What are you on about?" Ashkral frowned. "I see you want to act dumb all the way. Fine by me." Levi leaned against the chair and picked up the teacup on the small table on his side after a couple of attempts. Then he took a sip and started speaking, his tone unchanging. 10 years, for an entire decade, you have been beside me. You were the first nightcrawler I have laid my eyes on as a child after the incident. While you scared the living crap out of me and gave me unspeakable nightmares, I realized something." He smiled. "Those nightmares were normal, and they continued for 5 years until I reached 12, the minimum required age for a human to sign his name on a nocturnal contract." Ashkral remained quiet, unbothered by his silence. Levi continued on. "While the nightmares were normal, I couldn't help but note that all of them shared one single detail. You, possessing my body at the end. I'm sure you aren't foolish to leave behind such an obvious hint of your strong desire to own my body, which made me believe that it was my intuition warning me about you." Arthur listened to his brother's whispers, realizing that he was talking to a nightcrawler in the Bridge of Darkness. While he had no idea what he was talking about, he kept his ears open and didn't interrupt him. Once I became 12 years old, that's when you pulled back and watched as the nightcrawlers held a free buffet each day to torment me. Some invaded my dreams when I slept, some kept showing me the most hideous scenes known to mankind, and some were outright making it impossible for me to live. Levi paused, still maintaining the same serene smile like he was retelling a story unrelated to him instead of a childhood trauma that no one could imagine. Yet, throughout all of that misery, you made sure to eliminate any nightcrawler that seemed close to winning me over. You might not know, but I have a really strong memory and remember every single nightcrawler my spiritual eyes landed on. Every one of them. He intoned word by word while looking straight into Ashkral's gleaming red eye. Ashkral still refused to interject. One disappearance might be a lucky coincidence, but every time, Levi chuckled. You can imagine my surprise when I realized that you were my guardian angel, keeping me safe until I grew to my late teen years. While Levi's mental fortitude also played a heavy role, he was still a child. A child with dead parents and a future inhabited by outlandish creatures. There were bound to be some close calls where he simply wanted to give up. You're welcome. Ashkral finally spoke, his voice devoid of emotions. Welcome? Ha, ha. Levi couldn't help but break out laughing wildly, his white pearly teeth fully showing. Your shamelessness truly puts mine to shame. Levi's chuckles died down, and then he carried on coldly. You think I haven't figured out that you were behind all of it? That it was you, using those nightcrawlers to cripple my spirit for the promised day. The promised day? Ashkral's slit thinned a little. Yes, the day when I realized that my dream of becoming a daywalker is nothing but a dream. Levi sneered. It would have happened either in the contract ritual ceremony or after I reached 30 years old, the final window of becoming a daywalker. That's when you planned on swooping in and giving me the worst possible contract a daywalker can sign in his life, knowing that I will have no other choice but to sign it if I want my questions answered and my vengeance fulfilled. Well, guess what? I have no interest in wasting another year, begging for a recommendation letter, knowing that even if I obtained it and aced the trials, no nightcrawler but you will want me. Levi turned to face Ashkral and said expressionlessly, So, I decided to take the initiative and choose the date of the promised day. Like it or not, it's happening today. After he was done, Levi merely picked up the teacup and took another sip, quenching his dried throat. Then he asked Astra AI how much time was left for the 5 minutes to finish. 1 minute. Your move, Levi uttered, unfazed. Ashkral remained silent for a few moments before finally breaking into a burst of wicked laughter. Boy, your imagination is on a different dimension. Ashkral narrowed his eye. Your foolishness will be the end of you. Why would you assume I would go through so much trouble just to sign a daywalker contract with you? You do know if I wanted to possess your body, I would have done it years ago. Ashkral sneered. You think you had it in you to stop me from turning you into a sleepwalker? Not at all, Levi answered calmly. I knew deep down that you could have easily convinced me to sign a sleepwalker contract. Your unfathomable strength would have been enough to win me over and hand you my body for the sake of vengeance. If you know this much, how can you reach such an idiotic conclusion? Ashkral said, It's because I know this much that I am confident in my judgment. Levi replied calmly, While I have no idea why you prefer a daywalker contract instead of a sleepwalker, I'm certain that you want something from me. Something that even I don't know about. 30 seconds. Astra AI announced in the background. Ashkral, you either negotiate the daywalker contract terms with me and help me fulfill the deal with Shia, or you can watch me sign my life away, for I know it's more precious to you than to me. Levi uttered one last time. Ashkral narrowed his slit at Levi, noticing that he hadn't flinched once. Still, he refused to accept that his scheme was figured out. Boy, you should stop your bluff while you still can. He advised. 20 seconds. Levi remained silent and continued taking small sips of his herbal tea. In his eyes, he had already said more than enough. If Ashkral still refused to cooperate, This could only mean that he had misjudged the situation or he was holding strong until the last second. Either way, Levi had made peace with his decision. 10 seconds. Still, no reaction from Ashcrow or Levi. 5 seconds. Big bro, they're coming back. Arthur informed with an antsy look at the sight of Shia and her partners approaching the motel room. He heard everything and understood that his brother was in a game of chicken with Ashcrow using his soul as the price. While he couldn't hear Ashcrow's response, he could deduce that the situation wasn't going in his brother's favor. Unfortunately, no miracle was in sight. 3, 2, 1, 0. Cling. The room's door opened and Shia entered the room. Jamal closed the door behind him and each of them returned to their original position. Thank you for your patience. Levi smiled gently. So, Shia narrowed her eyes. You have a deal. The moment Levi said this, he extended his fingers towards the spiritual pitch-black paper, which appeared in his line of sight as well. Then, a gleaming white pen manifested on his fingers, and he wrote his full name at the bottom, next to Shia's full name. The instant the last letter was written, all the sentences seemed to have come to life as they shimmered brightly for a few moments. Then, the paper burned from bottom to top, turning into 2 clouds of ash. As everyone's eyes were affixed on the 2 clouds, each person had a different expression. Jamal and Sergio were surprised the deal actually went through. Shia and Bleeder had similar wide, excited grins. Arthur looked like his soul was snatched out of his body. His face was as pale as sheet paper. Meanwhile, Levi still maintained the same gentle smile, like he hadn't just signed his life away. At last, Ashcrow, as he watched those 2 clouds solidify into 2 spiritual seals and slowly move toward Shia and Levi, he couldn't help but finally drop the act. Ah, you little brat, you actually signed it. I should have known that you had it in you. Mad, absolutely mad. Ashcrow laughed, amused by the whole situation. Levi heard him and didn't bother to respond, focusing on the seal being stamped on his soul. When it happened, he felt a simple chill that lasted less than a split second. The contract has been approved, Shia asked while rubbing her hands in anticipation. Now, tell me, what should we do to achieve perfect evolution to Tier 3? As you said before, a risk has to be taken to move forward. I applaud your efforts. You have gained my attention. Ashcrow shared. Now, tell her that her contracted Nightcrawler needs to find the variant of blood crystal flower called Obsidian Bloodvine and ground it with the blood crystal flower stem while using. Before he could finish giving out the secret recipe to create a perfect evolutionary formula, knowledge worth millions of lumen credits, Levi's solemn voice resounded in the room. I will need you to bring me 5 blood crystal flowers, obsidian bloodvine, and a piece of ruby veil blossom. In addition, I will be requiring all the secondary materials for the remarkable evolution. 5 flowers, obsidian bloodvine, and even the infamous ruby veil blossom. As expected, perfect evolutions aren't cheap. Jamal sucked in a cold breath, knowing that a single ruby veil blossom cost 500,000 lumens. While money can solve ruby veil blossom, it will be quite tough to secure 5 flowers at once, plus their variant obsidian bloodvine. Shia frowned. I heard there's only a 10% chance for such a variant to emerge. Neither she nor her partners questioned Levi's information, as they knew that the moment he signed the contract, there was no way he would try to fool them. After all, if Bleeder's evolution failed, his life would no longer be his. As for asking him about the details, it was written in the contract that Levi wasn't obligated to share his method with them. This was quite a normal procedure, since this kind of vital information was sold for millions of lumens to the right target. Shia wasn't the sole daywalker with a contracted Nightcrawler of Bleeder species. All right, at least we have a goal now. Shia clapped her thighs and stood up with an invigorated look. She looked at her partners and said, we might require more manpower to collect 5 blood flowers. Sergio, go out and hire 4 rookie daywalkers at stage 3 or junior daywalkers. The payment is 20,000 lumens for each blood crystal flower harvested and 100,000 for obsidian bloodvine. Arthur raised an eyebrow in surprise, realizing that Shia might be from quite a well-off family. After all, there was no way a junior daywalker at evolution stage would have this much money to throw away. On it, Sergio took off immediately. Jamal, I need you to reach out to the Anti-Sleepwalker Bureau and request a temporary lift on Levi's ankle monitor. Huh? Don't tell me you want to bring him with us. Jamal was alarmed. Of course, he isn't leaving my sight until we conclude the deal. Shia winked in the direction of Levi, forgetting that he couldn't see. Fine by me. Levi smiled. If he is going, I am going. Arthur interjected with a cold gaze. Why not? You seem to have a bright prospect of becoming a high-ranked daywalker. It will be a good experience for you. Shia welcomed him too, knowing that while the harrowing forest might have some surviving night crawlers of the fallen Shadow Castle, it wouldn't be much of a threat to their party. Let's go. Next, she nodded at her partner and walked to the door. When she was about to leave, she turned around and showed a gentle smile. For your own sake, I genuinely hope this works out. While her smile was gentle, her tone carried a hint of bloodthirsty intent, making Arthur's heart skip a beat. Don't go nowhere. We move at dawn. Thud. The door was closed, leaving Arthur and Levi in the chamber. Before Arthur could say anything, Ashcrowl asked, What are you doing? Showing you how serious I am. If I were to give them the correct formula, the deal would go through and I would get my recommendation letter. Levi replied calmly while standing up. As I said before, there is no point in participating in the assembly if you are the only nightcrawler interested in me. So, I'm getting my contract on my own terms, right here, right now. Hearing this, both Arthur and Ashcrowl were left silent, staring at Levi's expressionless face. Even Arthur was thrown off by his big brother's unbreakable stubbornness to get his way regardless of the consequences, even if it meant walking straight to a life of enslavement. That's what Arthur thought, but in reality, every action Levi made was a calculated move no matter how crazy it seemed. While I do appreciate your resolve, it's not enough to convince me of linking my legacy, my life, my everything to a blind child, Ashcrowl said calmly. I understand this isn't a simple decision for nightcrawlers, Levi replied. Once you sign the contract, you return to a Tier 1 nightcrawler, a mortal, and most importantly, you lose your autonomy until the duration of the contract ends. Committing to a blind human is even worse, but that's the thing. Levi smiled faintly. You're different. You chose me specifically because I am blind. I don't know why, but I know damn well that my blindness is an advantageous condition for you. Correct me if I am wrong. After he heard all of this, Ashcrowl couldn't help but feel slightly surprised. This boy, he didn't lie, his observation and analytic skills are superb. He thought to himself as he narrowed his slit in the direction of Levi, he has been studying me for years, just as I have been doing to him. He only made his move once he was confident in his analysis. Although he hasn't hit the nail on the head, his intelligence and cunningness are unquestionable. Ashcrowl thought to himself, maybe it's about time I commit. I have tested him for long enough. He might be the one. But soon, Ashcrowl shook his head, knowing that it wasn't the time yet. He is yet to be tested in the real world. He smiled sinisterly as he gazed into the distance, seemingly noticing something strange. Let's see how he fares in the forest. Half a day later, Levi and Arthur were seen sitting in front of the motel's room, awaiting the return of Shia's squad and any sort of movement from Ashcrowl. Unfortunately, he hadn't reached out since the last time Levi spoke to him. While Levi seemed at peace with how the situation was developing, Arthur was getting antsy by the minute. Levi, you should have at least listened to the formula for Bleeder's perfect evolution. Arthur bit his nails nervously. It's been half a day already. Maybe he has already lost interest. Nightcrawlers are extremely unpredictable. Loosen up. Don't get yourself early wrinkles. Levi smiled peacefully. He will come around eventually. If not, well, it's not so bad to work as Daywalker's staff. Can you stop joking around? Arthur glared at his brother. Arthur always respected his brother's decisions and plans, believing that he had it covered every time. But this situation was simply too extreme as Levi was putting his life in the hands of a nightcrawler. Arthur could never trust a nightcrawler, especially when their parents were slaughtered under their hands. Too bad. All he could do was wait patiently, a virtue he always lacked. Is it sunset already? Levi asked after Astra AI informed him of the time. I guess so. The holy pillars are about to emerge, Arthur replied as he turned around and watched the sun slowly set over the horizon. As this was happening, the entire outpost came to a brief halt. Every daywalker and citizen stopped whatever they were doing and lifted their heads, gazing at the breathtaking sunset. Some seemed to appreciate the view, while the majority had looks of abandonment, wishing that the sun would never set. Sadly, the sun disappeared on the horizon and took away its precious protective light. But soon, everyone's gloomy expressions were replaced with looks of relief as a wave of gentle, luminous golden light started sparkling around them. It was like the entire outpost was illuminated by a gentle flashlight from the heavens, putting their hearts and minds at ease. Have no fear, the solar deities will never forsake us, Orin. One daywalker fell to his knees and bowed his head towards the heart of the holy Heliodor region. He was holding tightly to a necklace with an illuminating sun symbol. His face reflected nothing but utter devotion and reverence. Some daywalkers reacted in the same manner, and some merely nodded in appreciation towards the sky. Then, they continued with their duties or preparation for exploring the harrowing forest. Their reaction was understandable when the sole reason humanity hadn't gone extinct 100 years ago was due to those holy light pillars. After the first contact with the shadow dimension, night crawlers had invaded Earth from every patch of darkness through Stygian gates. In the first 12 hours, more than 3 billion people were either devoured or forced to become sleepwalkers for the sake of survival. Just when hope seemed lost and humanity's extinction was merely a few days away, 1,000 holy light pillars fell from the sky on major cities worldwide. The chosen cities had the most surviving population from the first invasion. Each pillar covered 300 kilometers in diameter, illuminating entire cities and the nearest regions to them. The moment the pillars descended, all night crawlers were scorched to death instantly in those cities and their underground, giving the survivors a safe haven at last. At the moment, there were no longer any countries after the old system fell apart. Only holy regions and infested continents. How warm! Meanwhile, Levi seemed to enjoy the divine light as he gently moved his palm across the illuminating sparkles. While he couldn't see them, he had a peculiar feeling of comfort, like he was being hugged by his mother. He had already asked his brother about it, and he told him that he had never felt the same sensation, nor had the others. This made Levi assume that maybe the solar deities were gentle with blind people, making him appreciate the warm sensation each night. Enjoying your sunbath under the holy light? Suddenly, Shia's irritated voice resounded from behind Arthur and Levi. When Arthur turned around, he noticed that neither her expression nor her partner's was good. You seem distressed. Were there any issues with the recruitment? Levi inquired calmly. How did you know? Shia knitted her eyebrows in wonder. You took quite a while to return, which shouldn't be possible when the payment is quite generous on your part. Levi smiled serenely. I assumed that most reliable rogue daywalkers were already signed to other agencies' squads. Your guess is half right. Shia sat down next to them and disclosed with an irked look, it's Mantis, the F***er from Sunstrike Agency. It turns out, they have already capitalized on their agency's main squad success at clearing the Shadow Castle. The bastard has signed 99% of the current daywalkers in the outpost. Sergio cursed. We were even approached by them. Jamal sighed helplessly. What's your next move? Levi inquired as he rested his arms on his white cane. Are you planning to wait until your agency's members arrive? No, we will move now. Shia uttered sternly. My agency associates will take days to arrive, as most of them are carrying their missions. With Sunstrike's current numbers, they will most definitely lock down the entire forest once they make their move. Are you mad? Arthur narrowed his eyes. It was already dangerous for us with extra members involved. How can you guarantee my brother's safety with just you three? Don't worry, Arthur. Levi answered him. She can't afford to lose me just yet. Aren't you a bit too sensible for your age? Shia leaned closer to Levi. Then she whispered, "I'm growing quite fond of you. Please don't disappoint me." Levi merely smiled in response, not bothering to turn his head. A few minutes later, Shia, Levi, Arthur, and the other two were seen walking towards the outpost's exit. To no one's surprise, the exit was extremely populated with contracted nightcrawlers, awaiting Sunstrike Agency's orders to move out into the forest. With such a gathering, it was difficult for Levi to tune out all the noises. The hell? What's a blind kid doing here? Boy, have you lost your way? Shishishi, it's best to go back, lest your ankle monitor gets you in trouble. Levi walked unaffected amidst the mockery. By now, he was immune to their ridicule, as he had heard practically everything. However, his unique situation attracted their partner's attention, making almost everyone turn their heads and gaze at them. Oh, is that she a Morningstar? Was she also recruited for this mission? Huh? Don't be delusional. Her family's fortune is enough to buy all of us. What is she doing with a blind kid? Is he even allowed to leave the borders? As Shia's squad walked across the crowded exit, murmurs were heard here and there. Although there were close to 100 daywalkers, Shia kept her hands inside her buggy jacket, walking with a straight back and a popsicle in her mouth. The crowd opened a path for them without her needing to say anything. Damn, is she really that famous? Arthur muttered under his breath as he kept looking at the daywalkers' expressions. Most of them were either envious or starstruck, like they were gazing at an actual celebrity. Levi heard his brother's murmurs through the noise and answered him casually. She is quite famous, but their reactions are for her father. Her father? Yes, Levi shared. She is the youngest daughter of Idris Morningstar, the current head of the Morningstar lineage family and the Bloodhunters Agency. Bloodhunters Agency? Arthur scratched his head in confusion. It can't be. There's only one Bloodhunters Agency in our holy region. It's a Tier 5 Agan. Arthur suddenly felt a chill course down his spine after realizing that his big brother wasn't screwing around with just any daywalker, but the precious daughter of one of the strongest daywalkers and the leader of the second-ranked agency in Heliodor's region. With a petrified expression, Arthur looked below him at his brother and saw that he still had the same serene, harmless smile. When did you find out? Once I knew her name, Levi answered while tapping his hearing device, letting him know that he used the Astra AI to search for her name on the network. You still committed? Arthur sighed helplessly. Brother, couldn't you have picked any other daywalker? Arthur's worry was rational as he heard many negative rumors related to the Bloodhunters Agency. The most well-known one, they were absolutely bat sh*t crazy. Have no fear, your big bro is here. Levi joked. F***ck off. Arthur massaged his temples, feeling like he was losing years of his life trying to keep up with his brother. Welcome back, Shia. Have you given my proposal a second thought? Suddenly, a feminine soft voice echoed across the gathering, silencing the noise almost immediately. Shia lifted her head lazily and noticed a tall, thin man, wearing a skin-tight black and green protective suit. He had long, braided pistachio green hair that reached his waist, making Shia click her tongue in annoyance each time she saw it. Mantis, haven't I warned you not to get in my face again if you don't want your precious hair sliced? Shia intoned with a hint of jealousy. A sweat dropped down Mantis' forehead as he stared at her serious expression. He heard rumors that Lord Idris Morningstar was forcing his entire family to keep their hair at a neck's length, female or male. It had to do with long hair being detrimental in combat. It seemed like Shia wasn't a fan of this family rule. If it wasn't for their deal, Shia would have given Arthur some bad looks too, due to his ponytail. Ha! Shia, no need to be so aggressive. Mantis released a nervous laugh, and then tried to win her over again. We are going to move at dawn after we add another batch of daywalkers. Please, feel free to tag along with us. No contract is required, and I will assure you that the first blood crystal flower we find goes to you. No payment needed. He smiled welcomingly. What do you say? Isn't this the same as making us work for her evolution free of charge? TSK, life truly isn't fair. The rest of the daywalkers showed envious and slightly bothered looks at Mantis' special treatment of Shia. But They kept their complaints within the confines of their minds, understanding that they weren't at Shia's level of reputation. Not interested. Yet, to everyone's surprise, Shia didn't even bother to stop. She moved past him while Jamal and Sergio were giving him a dirty look. She only stopped when she arrived at the closed-shut, solid metallic gate, guarded by two governmental daywalkers. One looked bored as hell, smoking a thin cigarette and hiding his face under a hat, while the other had an energetic attitude. The smoker leaned lazily, glancing at Levi behind a pair of thin black sunglasses. Then, he ordered him to come close and show his ankle monitor. Arthur brought his brother to the guard and helped him lift his trousers, exposing his ankle monitor. As Arthur looked around and noticed the weird looks his brother was being given, his veins popped up and his expression turned menacing. Don, just as he was about to tell them off, Shia turned around and uttered coldly, "Mind your F***king business before I rip your eyes off." Almost everyone turned their attention somewhere else, knowing that the Blood Hunters Agency was filled with monsters who couldn't care less about their reputation. In other words, antagonizing the precious daughter of the leader wasn't a smart move, as they were unpredictable. Arthur eased up a bit and gave Shia an appreciative nod. Shia ignored him and focused on the guards. Uncaring about the ongoing drama, the smoker daywalker glanced once at the ankle monitor and scanned it fully with his neural lens. A hologram manifested in front of him, giving him all the officially recorded details of Levi. // Name, Levi Ignis Larson. Age, 17. Gender, male. Background, Levi Larson grew up in the shadow of tragedy. Both of his parents were slaughtered at the hands of two mysterious night crawlers. They also ripped his eyes out and left him to turn into a sleepwalker, the signature move of the infamous Duskbound Order. Parental situation. Father, Brian Larson, the founder of Larson's Nightwear Company. Deceased. Mother, Rukia Altamir, no noteworthy information found. Deceased. Current status. Levi Larson has been under city arrest for 5 years, which was later on upgraded to a regional arrest after succeeding in all his yearly forensic psychological evaluations. Danger level, low. Ankle monitor status, temporarily lift, 15 days. Current guardian, Shia Chima Morningstar. // After he finished, he looked up at Levi and murmured to himself, "He sure has grown." Levi's ears twitched, hearing his whisper. Taken by surprise, he scrutinized the humanoid grayed aura of the guard, trying to see if he had met him somewhere. Unfortunately, there weren't many details in a foggy, featureless aura. He checks out. The smoker daywalker waved his hand lazily and lowered his hat, hiding half of his face while leaning against his chair. His partner swiftly opened the gate for them after checking the IDs of Shia and the others. Ka-thump. The metallic gate let out a thunderous noise, echoing across the silent, harrowing forest in the distance. Please be careful. There are still many remnants of the fallen Shadow Castle hiding underground. The energetic guard saluted them by placing 3 fingers on his chest. Shia, Sergio, Jamal, and even Arthur saluted back in the same fashion. Then, they walked outside of the outpost, standing amidst an empty field of dirt and rocks. There wasn't even a path towards the forest. It was like they were thrown completely into the wilderness. Ka-thump. The guard closed the gate behind them, following protocol. Since the Holy Region borders were defined by the range of the Holy Pillar, those outposts were considered the first line of defense for each region. Thus, daywalkers could leave their regions at any given moment and explore the wastelands, but they had to do it at their own risk. The outside world doesn't feel as dangerous as I anticipated, Arthur said as he looked around him. We are still under the sun disk tower illumination. Let's see if you will say the same when your only source of light is the moon, stars, and your equipment. Sergio snickered. As he mentioned, the tall sun disk tower didn't act as a mere weapon against the Nightcrawler's encroachment, but also as a lighthouse at night. Right now, it was focusing its light in the direction of the forest, illuminating the entire path towards it. Unfortunately, the forest was outside of its range. Enough chit-chat. We have 10 hours at best before dawn. We must reach the depth of the forest before Mantis group moves out. Shia ordered calmly, "Bring out your night mounts." All three reached out to a bag on their right waist and pulled out a small wooden totem, each one with a different shape and peculiar inscriptions written on it. Shia had an eagle-like totem, Sergio possessed a wolf-like totem, and Jamal held onto a horse-like totem. All three closed their eyes and murmured different incantations with strange-sounding language while holding the totem in one hand. The moment the incantation was finished, the three blood hunters threw the totems in front of them. Then, everyone watched as a mysterious light descended on the totems from the heavens, illuminating the fine inscriptions written on their surfaces. After the inscriptions were fully illuminated, the totems grew in size bit by bit until they were bigger than Shia's party. Then, the wooden totem shattered, revealing three monstrous Tier 1 nightcrawlers. When exposed to the physical world, the shadowy horse and blue-furred wolf nightcrawlers growled viciously at the party. The wolf even tried to lung at Arthur with bloodthirsty eyes and saliva dripping down its vicious mouth. "Ayu, easy boy, easy eye." Sergio pulled into a chain of light, which was linked to a spiky collar on the nightcrawler's neck. After a couple of tugs, the blue-haired wolf finally started behaving properly as each tug released a painful burning sensation on the collar. "You still haven't tamed them?" Shia gave them a look of dissatisfaction while patting the wings of her eagle, which was lowering its head in obedience. Though everyone could see the hint of dread in the eagle's eyes, making them understand that it wasn't listening to Shia out of love. "We are trying our best. The F***ers are too rebellious." Jamal cursed as he kept pulling into a similar light chain, forcing the shadowy horse to behave. "I know a trick that might make it easier for you guys to tame them." Levi interjected softly. "What do you know about taming night mounts?" Sergio glared. "Quite a bit." Levi walked towards Sergio, using his cane. Then he extended his hand in front and requested, "May I get some luminous snacks?" Shia gave a head nod to Sergio, making him reach out to his backpack and pull three small orbs the size of marbles. Then, he handed them to Levi with an annoyed look. "You better not waste them. I am running low on stock." Levi merely smiled in response while walking slowly toward the giant blue-furred wolf. Since the wolf was in the real world, it appeared as a wolfish blue aura in Levi's eyes. Still, Levi could sense that its aggression was growing with each step he got closer to it. My late mother's hobby was learning about nightcrawlers in general. Archetypes, evolutionary paths, rarities, behavior, and the rest of their seemingly infinite peculiar qualities. Levi shared softly while placing one luminous snack on his palm. Then, he pressed it and it started shimmering with purified stored sunlight. The moment the three nightcrawlers noticed the light, their hunger took over their minds. Even Shia's mount showed hints of wanting to pounce on the snack, but one cold glare from Shia made it reconsider. Grrrr. Meanwhile, Jamal and Sergio were forced to tightly hold onto the light chains, keeping their night mounts controlled. When studying Tier 1 nightcrawlers, she found out that besides their insatiable hunger for light and their low intelligence, they reacted excessively to another thing. Levi brought the luminous snack right next to the blue-furred wolf's mouth and kept it at a short distance, forcing it to try its best to eat the snack, but to no avail. "Sit," he ordered with the same serene smile. The wolf completely ignored his order, its eyes still affixed on nothing but the snack. "Sit." Still no response. Seeing this, Sergio had already lost his patience and commented with an irked tone, "Shia, are you really going to let him waste more of our time?" Shia shushed him with a finger near her mouth. "Sit." After Levi repeated the order 3 times and the wolf failed to heed it, he brought the luminous snack right in front of its eyes. Then, he tightened his palm until the orb exploded, releasing a short-lived flash. Shia, Sergio, Jamal, Bleeder, and the rest of the contracted nightcrawlers were left stunned for a moment. Even the mounts went quiet, their eyes widening as they gazed at Levi. Calm and collected, Levi took a step back. A second after the purified sunlight died out, hell broke loose. Grrrr, caw, nay. The three mounts roared, losing their marbles immediately. You bastard! Are you screwing with us? Sergio cursed as he tried his best to calm down the agitated wolf. What's the meaning of this? Shia questioned. She still had faith in Levi, knowing that he wasn't foolish to create such a mess without a result. Be patient. Levi pulled another luminous snack and brought it close to the agitated wolf. It was walking in circles in its place, but its vicious eyes never left Levi. After noticing the snack, its viciousness died out immediately and started trying to eat it again. Sit, Levi commanded calmly. Seeing that it still refused to follow his commands, Levi didn't hesitate to blow off the orb, causing the night crawlers to snap again. Without waiting for anyone to interfere, Levi brought out the last luminous snack and commanded coldly, sit. Under everyone's shocked expressions, the blue-furred wolf sat down on all four paws immediately while whimpering softly, seemingly begging Levi to stop wasting purified sunlight. Yet, what shocked them the most was the sight of the shadowy horse and the white-feathered eagle also sitting down, even when they weren't being addressed. Good boy. Levi smiled kindly and fed the snack to the wolf while slowly caressing its fur. Then, he suggested that Shia and Jamal feed their night crawlers too, so they would associate listening to commands got them snacks, and refusing to abide would result in their destruction. Shia and Jamal did as they were told, and watched as their mounts became much more respectful of their presence. Shia looked at Levi in intrigue and asked only one question. How? Because my brother is the best at anything he touches. Arthur grinned proudly. I wish that was true. Levi chuckled. The truth is, after thorough research, my mother discovered that Tier 1 night crawlers react just as intensely to wasting purified sunlight as they do to consuming it. So, I figured you could use it as a trick to make your mounts obedient if the pain of the divine chains wasn't enough. Shia and her party were left astounded. How? Is this the first time I'm hearing about this? Shia raised an eyebrow in surprise. Because knowledge is wealth in this era, Levi replied. While he knew that his mother's intelligence was on the high end after reading through all the research papers, he wasn't delusional enough to believe that she was the first and only person to find out such information. In other words, this kind of knowledge was either kept on the low or sold to interested parties, following the same approach of evolution-related knowledge. Shia and her party figured out what Levi meant instantly, leaving them a bit puzzled. Why haven't you sold it? Sergio frowned. I believe such a taming technique would have fetched you a reasonable amount of credits. Neither of you seems like the type to have money. Jamal doubled down as he scanned Levi and Arthur's clothes. Money, Levi added sincerely. I shared a piece of my mother's knowledge with you simply because it would have helped you. Not everything needs to be sold. If one doesn't know where to draw the line, it won't be long before he finds himself selling his soul. Shia and the others were left a bit astounded to hear such matured wisdom come out of the lips of a teenager. Helped us. Sergio narrowed his eyes at Levi while talking telepathically with his contracted night crawler. Othner, are his motives truly that pure? The rocky hog replied calmly. I'm not sure. The boy is nearly impossible to read with his soulless gaze. Sometime later, Levi was seen sitting on top of the white feathered eagle, holding on to Shia's waist tightly. He had a big smile as he enjoyed the wind caressing his face. Meanwhile, Arthur was left to sit on the shadowy horse behind Jamal. His experience wasn't as enjoyable. Arthur yelped in pain with each gallop, feeling like his balls were being crushed. Neither Jamal nor the horse was enjoying their time without a saddle. Arthur weighed more than 140 kilograms of pure muscle, an absolute genetic anomaly. How was it even humanly possible to get this big at 16 without being a daywalker? Did he take steroids? Is it even enough? Jamal murmured as he gazed at Arthur's gigantic hands holding onto his waist, feeling a bit of dread creeping up on him each time Arthur tightened his hands. Although he was a daywalker, he was still a mere junior. In addition, he was of psychic specialization, meaning his contracted nightcrawler was geared towards mostly mental-based battles. This resulted in his body and physical strength being quite weak. He was much weaker than Arthur physically. Suddenly, the shadowy horse jumped over a small boulder on its path and snatched Arthur's soul with it. Instinctively, Arthur hugged Jamal tightly, feeling like he would get thrown off the horse. Arg, I can't breath. With eyes popping out of their sockets and a face as pale as a sheet of paper, Jamal kept tapping on Arthur's forearm while trying his best to catch his breath. Let go, you are choking him. Sergio came to his rescue, scolding Arthur loudly on top of his wolf. Ah, so sorry, I lost control for a bit. Arthur apologized with a foolish smile after relaxing his grip, leaving Jamal to cough uncontrollably. I almost got had by a civilian. A child even, huh? Meanwhile, his contracted nightcrawler Oro was laughing at him, uncaring about upsetting his partner even more. Almost all intelligent nightcrawlers were assholes. It didn't matter if they were contracted or not. They would never miss a chance to bully someone. You, get down. Ashamed and a bit terrified, Jamal immediately stopped the shadowy horse and pulled Arthur down. Sergio, it's your turn. Before Jamal could pass on the ticking time bomb, Sergio flew past him at great speed, kicking off a cloud of dust. This left Jamal, Arthur, and the shadowy horse to stare at each other in awkward silence. A few seconds later, Arthur coughed. I will be gentle next time. The way he worded it pissed Jamal even more. Trust me, I promise I won't go hard. Arthur doubled down with an innocent look. Arg, just shut up and ride the damn horse. An hour later, Shia, Levi, and Sergio were seen standing at the gates of the harrowing forest with their backs facing it. As they were talking with each other, a tiny black horse appeared over the horizon, galloping at full speed in their direction. About damn time, Shia grumbled as she was waiting for over 10 minutes now. Soon, her irritation died down and was replaced with an amused look at Arthur sitting in front while Jamal hugged him in the back. Since Arthur was built like a tank and Jamal looked like a tall stick, only his arms were visible. Under the dreadful silence of the night, Arthur and Jamal's distressed voices echoed from a distance. Stop the horse. I don't know how. Pull its hair. Arthur used too much force, ripping a handful of hair, causing the shadowy horse to yelp in pain and stop mid-sprint. Just like they had pulled the front brakes of a bike, Arthur and Jamal were sent flying in the direction of the main party. What in the... Shia face-bombed as she watched those two idiots hugging each other in midair, pure dread taking hold of their expressions. Mika, catch them. Cree. The white feathered eagle took off immediately and caught them with its talons a couple of meters before they got smacked by the ground. Then it brought them back to the party, dropping them off near Shia's feet. I swear if you guys leave me with him again, I will beat him up. Jamal stood up, steam practically pouring from his ears. Everyone's teasing looks didn't make him feel any better about such a humiliating experience. Is he always this feisty? Oblivious, Arthur asked while dusting his ass. That's the thing. He is usually the silent one. Shia chuckled as she watched Jamal put his night mount back inside another ceiling totem. Then, he took off towards the forest on his own, having no interest in talking about what happened. After sealing their night mounts, Shia and the others chased after Jamal. The moment they went inside, a sudden chilly wind blew past them, sounding akin to a harrowing scream of a child. Is this why it's called the harrowing forest? Arthur inquired, still not scared. It used to be called Forest Neobid before the fall of civilization. Levi educated his little brother. After the Shadow Castle took over, the forest was altered over time by the seeping corruption of the Shadow Dimension. The first brave pioneers renamed it to the harrowing forest after hearing the noise and believing that the wind wasn't producing it, but it was the cries of captured souls within the Shadow Dimension. Well, looks like the second part was a load of crap. Arthur chuckled, listening to the non-stop windy cries. He knew that with the destruction of the Shadow Castle, the permanent link to the Shadow Dimension was gone for good. Sure, some Stygian gates would be open here and there, but they would be used only by mindless Tier 1 or Tier 2 Nightcrawlers. The intelligent Tier 3 Nightcrawlers and above were either already eliminated with the Shadow Castle or escaped to another region. In other words, The week after clearing those shadow castles and higher-ranked nightcrawlers' nests was always the safest for daywalkers to explore. Still, it was never a bad idea to be safe. Activate your nightwear strips, Shia ordered after noticing the weakening of moonlight as they went deeper into the forest. The forest trees were mostly cork oaks, known for their thick and rugged bark. However, when there were too many of them, their size could cover the sky, allowing darkness to reign. Is this why it's called the Harrowing Forest? Arthur inquired, still not scared. It used to be called Forest Neobid before the fall of civilization. Levi educated his little brother. After the Shadow Castle took over, the forest was altered over time by the seeping corruption of the Shadow Dimension. The first brave pioneers renamed it to the Harrowing Forest after hearing the noise and believing that the wind wasn't producing it, but it was the cries of captured souls within the Shadow Dimension. Well, looks like the second part was a load of crap. Arthur chuckled, listening to the non-stop windy cries. He knew that with the destruction of the Shadow Castle, the permanent link to the Shadow Dimension was gone for good. Sure, some Stygian gates would be open here and there, but they would be used only by mindless Tier 1 or Tier 2 Nightcrawlers. The intelligent Tier 3 Nightcrawlers and above were either already eliminated with the Shadow Castle or escaped to another region. In other words, the week after clearing those Shadow Castles and higher-ranked Nightcrawlers' nests was always the safest for daywalkers to explore. Still, it was never a bad idea to be safe. Activate your nightwear strips, Shia ordered after noticing the weakening of moonlight as they went deeper into the forest. The forest trees were mostly cork oaks, known for their thick and rugged bark. However, when there were too many of them, their size could cover the sky, allowing darkness to reign. Shia, Jamal, and Sergio pulled out thin white stripes and placed them on their arms, thighs, back, and chest. Then, she offered a few strips to Levi and Arthur. You know how to use them? She asked. How couldn't we? Levi smiled bitterly as he moved his fingers across the thin, smooth white stripes. What is that supposed to mean? Shia frowned. It's nothing. Levi kept quiet as he covered his body with the stripes, using his brother's help in areas he couldn't reach. Seeing that both of them were ready, Shia dropped the subject, knowing that it wasn't time for a useless chit-chat. Astra, activate nightwear stripes. In a matter of seconds, all the used nightwear stripes were turned on under Shia's order, illuminating at least 10 meters around the party. The best part? The light was gentle on the eyes, as each stripe contained thousands of tiny, energy-efficient LEDs capable of emitting controlled light outwards. However, the light was still artificial, which meant it was harmless to the Nightcrawlers and was used specifically for constant cheap illumination. With decent light on their side, the party carried on their exploration, making sure to check every tree, boulder, and hole. Why are we searching here? Isn't it much more efficient to reach the forest's depths first? Arthur wondered. Most of the blood crystal flowers and other natural treasures must have already been collected by Sunstrike Agency's main squad at the depths. Shia answered, but none of them will bother wasting their precious time searching the entire forest for the rest. That's why Mantis has bought most daywalkers over, wanting to clear out the entire forest. Jamal added while flipping a boulder over. In simpler terms, we might get lucky in the outer circle. I see. Arthur nodded in understanding while getting his hands dirty too. Levi was the only one not doing much work. He was left to sit on a fallen trunk, holding onto his white cane on his lap. Not even Sergio dared to go as low as asking a blind kid to help them search for the flowers. After spending a few minutes clearing an area, the party packed up and moved to another area. Then, they repeated the process. In this manner, they were going deeper into the forest while making sure to explore as much surface area as possible. How is it this quiet? Levi knitted his eyebrows as he kept looking around him. He expected to spot a couple of Tier 1 Nightcrawlers roaming the forest, but nothing appeared in his spiritual sight. Only darkness and his party's Nightcrawlers, who were chilling with him. It is a bit strange, Bleeder interjected. Maybe the Sunstrike Agency has completely wiped out the nest, not sparing even the low-tiered Nightcrawlers. Maybe. The fatty has told me that the Sunstrike Agency has chosen to play a death game to reclaim the territory. Offner shared calmly, "We all know this approach almost always results in the elimination of 99% of the nest per the nocturnal contract terms." "Oh, I didn't know they chose a death game." Levi raised an eyebrow in surprise. No wonder the forest seems barely touched by their conquest. The news shared publicly wasn't always complete, since journalists and reporters couldn't go out and bring the actual news live. This meant the news was heavily dependent on what the agencies or the government wanted to share. Of course, this affected the public mostly as those agencies were forced by law to give a thorough report of their expeditions to the authorities. This resulted in pieces of the news being shared amongst the upper echelons and daywalkers, allowing even Shia's party to hear rumors. "Looks like we spoke too soon," Levi suddenly said while gazing at 10 approaching green auras from every direction. The auras resembled double-headed green hogs with 2 long horns in the center of their back. "I see nothing," Bleeder frowned. "Are you imagining stuff?" "They're approaching from all sides in the real world," Levi clarified. "Wait, you can see night crawlers in the real world." Bleeder's eyes widened in shock. "Yes, they appear as spiritual auras," Levi replied calmly. "But is this really the time to be talking about this?" "They're getting closer." Bleeder, Oro, and Offner glanced at each other in confusion for a second before they nodded at each other and swiftly returned to their partners. "We might have company." As Shia and the others heard their contracted night crawler's warning, they immediately summoned them as signature weapons and entered a small formation around Levi and Arthur. "What's going on?" Arthur's expression turned solemn. Shia shushed him with a finger while glancing at Jamal, who was holding onto a psionic bow, which was covered in hardened green scales. The bow had no arrows or a string. Yet, Jamal closed his eyes and aimed at the top. As his concentration reached its zenith, a spiritual misty string manifested on the bow, allowing Jamal to hold on to it and pull it to the limit. Arthur watched in utter fascination as an amber-colored arrow seemed to flicker between reality and illusion emerged in the center of the bow. Before he could react, Jamal released the arrow into the sky. With his eyes closed and 2 fingers placed on his right temple, Jamal started controlling the arrow freely, seeing exactly what the arrow was seeing. It was like he had an ancient GoPro strapped on the arrow, allowing him to turn it into a controllable drone. The arrow kept piercing through trees and boulders without its speed weakening at all, as it was created out of Jamal's spiritual energy. After making a swift scan around them, he spotted 10 peculiar horns protruding from the dirt while slowly edging closer. "It's dirt-eater hogs. I have spotted 10, but there might be more. The closest one is 20 meters away from us," Jamal informed them after canceling his scanning ability. Then, he raised an eyebrow in astonishment, knowing that it should have been impossible for their contracted night crawlers to spot them from this distance, especially when the dirt-eater hogs were known to move 2 meters underground, exposing only their horns, which were hollow and used for breathing. But he knew that it wasn't time for such questions. "Good job," Shia nodded while entering a battle stance. "Leave them to me. Keep the brothers safe." Hearing that they had company, Arthur immediately stood in front of Levi while holding onto a giant thick log. It must weigh at least 50 kilograms, yet Arthur was holding it akin to a great sword. Levi couldn't see what was going on, but he had the assistance of his AI as she was narrating everything. He used his rich imagination to fill in the rest of the details. "I can smell them. I can smell their blood. They are close." Meanwhile, Shia followed the foreign smell of their blood until she stood at exactly the center of their ambush, redirecting their attention to her solely. It was in a small space filled with dead leaves and tiny rocks, cornered by 4 oak trees. Shia closed her eyes and controlled her breath while holding onto the pole of her crimson crescent-bladed glaive. After a few moments of harrowing windy cries, the dead leaves started jumping all over the place as tremors took over the space. Then, from the depths of darkness, 10 giant double-headed hogs emerged with pure viciousness in their eyes as they charged toward Shia. "Oink! Oink! Oink!" Saliva was pouring out of their mouths, tainting their long, sharp fangs. Their eyes were pitch black, reflecting the shimmering Shia akin to a delicious snack. They knocked down trees in their path, creating a loud disturbance in the entire forest. In front of humans, the light plants absorbed meant absolutely nothing to night crawlers, even if they were low-tiered and non-intelligent. Seeing this overwhelming sight, Arthur couldn't help but gulp a mouthful in dread. Just as he was about to wonder if it was fine to leave Shia alone, she made her move. Mantra blood arts, blood ring of damnation. She murmured calmly as she started swinging the glaive rapidly once the hogs stepped inside the circle of light produced by her nightwear stripes. Slice, slice, slice. The crescent blade flew out of the pole, spinning extremely fast as it sliced the charging hogs, the flying leaves, rocks, and whatever was inside the circle of illumination. Just like a spot dancer, Shia moved only her arm as she kept swinging the detached pole, taking a mere step back and forth. How is she controlling the crescent blade? Arthur exclaimed in astonishment as he watched the terrifying spinning crescent blade cut through the hogs with minimum resistance. There is a string of sticky blood connecting the pole with the crescent blade. Sergio shared with a faint smirk. Arthur squinted at Shia's pole, wanted to see the string of blood, but to no avail. The flying blood of the hogs was congealing in midair and following the trajectory of the crimson crescent, making it extremely difficult to see anything else. In less than a few seconds, the dying squeals of the hogs were no longer heard. Only the whooshing air of Shia's crescent blade spinning around the 10-meter radius, creating a perfect ring of blood with the sliced-up corpses of the hogs. Bon appetit! Bleeder's terrifying mouth manifested on the crescent blade, and it started sucking off the long serpentine blood, sparing not a single drop. After he was done, he burped loudly, and Shia summoned him back. Then, she returned to the squad and said, "Collect their crystallized seeds quickly. The noise must have attracted other night crawlers." "Good work. Brutal as always." Jamal and Sergio patted her on the shoulder and swiftly went to the crime scene. "You should go with them to learn how to extract crystallized seeds." Shia addressed Arthur. Arthur glanced at his brother for a moment and then looked at Shia. After recalling what she had just done to those hogs, he knew he was leaving his brother in safe hands. "Be right back." He threw the massive log away and then worked on the corpses with Sergio and Jamal, who started teaching him the most efficient ways to extract crystallized seeds. Once an owner of a Shadow Life seed dies, his seed get crystallized into a somewhat blue gem. Those crystallized seeds were everything to Daywalkers since they were traded for solar Aegis coins, which was the main currency for Daywalkers-related markets. Shia reached out inside her pocket and pulled out 2 covered lollipops. She placed one in Levi's palm, and he shook his head politely. "No, thank you, I am on a sugar-free diet." "Sugar-free? How boring is that?" Shia shrugged her shoulders. "Suit yourself." "Cool attack you have there," Levi inquired in intrigue. "Is it an innate ability or a learned technique?" "It's learned," Shia shared with a lollipop in her mouth. "You learned such a powerful ability while being a junior Daywalker?" Levi was surprised. Although Levi's source of information was his AI, and he didn't really see the full extent of Shia's ability, he knew it was extremely powerful. After all, a junior Daywalker shouldn't be able to take down 10-tier 1 Nightcrawlers in a few seconds without using an innate ability. He understood that becoming a Daywalker was quite easy, but what truly separated a genius from a mediocre was his resistance/attunement to light and his teachability. Most rookie and junior Daywalkers relied on their innate abilities, which were easily unlocked after passing each stage. On the other hand, techniques required time, dedication, and talent. "It's not special. I have been at a junior level for more than half a year now." Shia curled her lips in annoyance. "I didn't know it would be this bothersome to find a blood crystal flower. Don't mind me asking, but shouldn't it be easy for you to obtain it?" Levi inquired. "I mean, your family's wealth and reputation should have been more than enough to secure a flower, even if it was located in other holy regions." "No, thank you. I would rather shoot myself in the head before I ask help from that controlling narcissist." Shia uttered coldly as she made a gun gesture next to her temple. Levi knew that she was referring to her father, as he had heard quite many crazy stories that painted him in a bad light. If this was his perception of his character from mere stories, he didn't dare imagine what Shia was dealing with daily. Forget that old geezer, and tell me more about your peculiar spiritual vision. Shia asked curiously. Bleeder has already told me that you were the one spotting the hog's ambush. Oh, it's nothing special, really. Levi smiled. I have gained the ability to see night crawlers and daywalkers in the real world in their spiritual aura form. What do you mean it's nothing special? Shia's eyes widened in shock. You have a freaking superpower without even being a daywalker. Shia's reaction was understandable. She knew that night crawlers could exist either in the real world or in the shadow dimension. Those two were considered physical planes, while the Bridge of Darkness was the spiritual link to both dimensions. However, they could access the Bridge of Darkness only from the shadow dimension, whether they were contracted or not. That's why Bleeder and the others were incapable of seeing the dirt-eater hogs in the real world through the bridge, just like they could not see humans unless they were connected to the Bridge of Darkness. In simpler terms, their vision was limited to only night crawlers existing in the shadow dimension or the Bridge of Darkness, unlike Levi. I wouldn't go as far as to call his superpower. Levi smiled faintly as he watched Jamal and Sergio's humanoid spiritual auras, but it does bring some humane life into my dim world. You are crazy. How can you downplay such a busted cheat? Shia spoke excitedly, already seeing the crazy possibilities. You are like a radar to night crawlers. You can see their physical forms if they were in the shadow dimension, and their spiritual forms if they were in the real world. None of them can escape your sight. Then what? Levi chuckled in self-derision. Will this help me become a daywalker? I have already tried my best to sell it to night crawlers, but all of them still rejected me. Shia's excitement died down. She realized that while Levi's spiritual vision was amazing, it still wouldn't change the fact that he could not grow as a daywalker consistently as the others without eyes. Sure, he could utilize growth totems, but they were too expensive to maintain consistent growth compared to simply absorbing the sunlight directly. I mean, while your future as a daywalker seems grim, I do believe that you can become a great scout using your ability. Shia tried to uplift him. I, for one, will be more than delighted to have you in my squad. Without your help, the hogs would have made me sweat a bit. Thank you for the offer, but I have no interest in giving up on my dream, Levi said calmly. Suit yourself, but don't forget, Shia whispered suggestively near his ear. If you fail to uphold your end of the bargain, I will own you either way. I will have no complaints, Levi replied peacefully. After harvesting the crystallized seeds, Shia's party continued through towards the depths of the harrowing forest. Unfortunately, their luck hadn't turned around. They still hadn't discovered a single blood crystal flower or even other natural dimensional treasures. Yet, none of them were disheartened. They understood that natural dimensional treasures were highly sought after by both night crawlers and humans. After all, night crawlers needed them for evolution even if they weren't contracted. As for humans, besides the known use for evolution, those natural treasures open a path to many miracles. In addition, they could be sold or used to ask for favors if offered to the Solar Aegis Sanctuary, depending on their rarity. For such well-desired treasures, it was only normal for the previous Nightcrawler nest to hoard them, and for the Sunstrike Agency to clear them out, leaving only some crumbs for the rogue explorers. Hours went by, and before long, Shia's party had made it to the center of the harrowing forest. As they walked past a thick bush, the party was exposed to a stunning scene. Whoa, is that an umbrella? Arthur exclaimed. His pupils widened to the limit at the sight of a gigantic broken-apart umbrella on top of a destroyed hill. The entire area was destroyed as trees were uprooted, boulders shattered, and even hills broke apart, leaving behind crumbled cliffs. The umbrella was crafted out of black wood and was split apart into tens of pieces, lying all over the place. If it wasn't for the canopy and the shaft being relatively near each other, giving the shape of a broken umbrella, Arthur wouldn't have guessed it. using a black wooden umbrella for protection from the sun above their nest. Sergio sneered, "They're even stealing our products and using them in their favor. I would take an umbrella any day than a sealed dome of darkness," Shia commented as she walked towards the ruined nest. Dome of darkness? Arthur tilted his head in confusion. Is it what I am thinking? How can you not know this? Levi frowned. Are you sleeping through your classes? Cough. I just forget easily. Levi knew that he was lying through his teeth. But all he could do was sigh helplessly at his brother's pure hatred for studying. You know that nightcrawler nests are separated by their sizes, the number of nightcrawlers, the average nest tier, and lastly the highest tier? Levi asked. I know that much. Arthur answered, seemingly insulted by the question. Levi's eyelids twitched at his tone and continued. Well, there's a hidden criterion to judge a nest's true danger level. It's their protective measure against the sunlight. In the case of a nest with a 15-kilometer surface area, Tier 4 nightcrawler as its ruler, and above 100 nightcrawlers as the troops, they are named shadow castles like this one. But, in some rare cases, the same conditions might be met, yet the nest would be much more dangerous than a shadow castle. Levi paused, all because of the nest's protective measures. You mean this umbrella isn't that good? Arthur raised an eyebrow in surprise. Based on its shaft's height, I believe it should at least cast a protective shadow over 5 kilometers of surface area. I never said it was bad, but it's nowhere near as overwhelming as a dome of darkness. Levi shared as he looked above him. Imagine if this entire forest was covered in a dome of blackwood. What agency would dare challenge it on their own, even if they knew that the nest was a shadow castle? I see. Arthur nodded. While he may not know as much as his brother, he understood that if a territory was obscured in darkness for a long time, the corruption seeping from the shadow dimension was multiplied by 10, if not more. He knew that when a certain degree of corruption was achieved, the entire environment would become a permanent part of the shadow dimension. The shadow dimension's atmosphere was extremely deadly to citizens and even low-level daywalkers. In other words, those domes of darkness were nothing but a death trap even if the nests were categorized as Shadow Castle or Midnight Dominion. For a non-daywalker, you sure know a lot. Jamal smiled after listening to Levi's whole explanation. I read a lot. Levi smiled back. Enough chit-chat and start searching for the flowers, Shia ordered sternly. Mantis Group will move at dawn. We have a few hours at best before the forest turns into a stew of daywalkers. On it. The squad got busy immediately, leaving Levi sitting alone in the center of their search zone. After finding out his special ability, he was entrusted fully with scouting ahead and alarming them if any nightcrawlers were nearby. Their journey to the center wouldn't have gone so smoothly if it wasn't for him. While the party was racing against time, an army was being prepared at the gates of the outpost under Mantis' leadership. At the moment, he was giving a speech while standing above a box, facing the crowd. Listen up, people. Lord Darius and his honored raid squad have already gotten the difficult part out of the way. He uttered proudly, getting rid of the shadow castle that has been terrorizing the southern borders of our precious holy region. Long live the Sunstrike Agency. Long live Lord Darius. Long live the Sunstrike Agency. Long live Lord Darius. The daywalkers associated with the Sunstrike Agency didn't hesitate to shout out loudly amongst the crowd, pride covering their expressions. The rest of the daywalkers might not have shown a similar zealous reaction, but they did give out nods of appreciation. All we have to do now is to clear the harrowing forest and close up all the remaining Stygian gates to reclaim the territory. We planned on moving at dawn, but since everyone is already here, and I don't expect any new arrivals, we will immediately commence the follow-up expedition. Mantis inquired, does anyone have a problem with that? Seeing that the majority of daywalkers shook their heads, Mantis turned around and walked towards the closed-shut gate. The daywalkers formed a long queue behind him since they all needed to have their daywalkers' IDs checked by the guards. In a short while, everyone was out of the outpost and summoned their night mounts. Some used similar night crawlers as mounts, and some possessed unique ones, drawing the envy of those nearby. Move out. Mantis shouted with his feminine voice as he extended his hand towards the forest. Dust clouds rose as more than 100 daywalkers rode in one massive group. Although most of them were considered rookie and junior daywalkers, their numbers were large enough to strike terror even on a Tier 4 nightcrawler. Meanwhile, at the far back of the army, an average-looking tan-skinned girl with long brunette hair styled into a ponytail was riding on a black fox. The preys are on the move. As her honey-brown eyes scanned her nearby peers, they turned pitch black for a split second before returning to normal. "Malik, what are you doing so far behind?" A nice-looking teenager approached her with a charming smile. He was blond and had piercing blue eyes, a typical handsome European boy. He was riding on a metallic armored camel, yet his speed was matching the frontrunners easily. "Danny, you know my dust allergies will act up if I get too close to the group." Malik blushed, lowering her head. "Haha, my bad. Danny offered with a chuckle. "You want to ride with me? I will shield you with my life from the havoc of dust." The nearest squad rolled their eyes at his corniness, believing that he was going to strike out. But, to their surprise, Malik agreed with a shy head nod. TSK, they weren't lying when they said that if a girl wants you, it takes minimum effort to bag her. Matthew, this is enough to show you that it's time to give up on your crush. No amount of flowers and love letters will fix your busted face. F***CK off. At least I wasn't cheated on. You little. Ouch. He aimed under the belt. The daywalkers teased each other as they watched Malik jump over Danny's camel and reseal her fox inside the ceiling totem. While those two were experiencing a dawn of romance under the envious looks of their peers, the telepathic message had already reached its destination. At the depth of the underground, 5 kilometers away from the harrowing forest, a sea of nightcrawlers were seen huddled up together in a massive, dimly lighted cave. Most of the nightcrawlers were Tier 1/Tier 2 and of the same spider archetype. They had 8 hairy legs, 8 crimson eyes, and long, sharp teeth reaching the ground. The clawed teeth clicked together, creating a disturbing noise across the cave. "Settle down, my children. Settle down. Our time to feast is within reach." Suddenly, an enticing, melodious voice resonated from above, calming the agitated army of spiders. As the noise died out, the voice owner moved past the dim light, casting a horrific shadow of a humongous queen spider tiptoeing on a complicated web. But then, a single web line fell from the ceiling, and what came down wasn't the giant horrific spider queen, but a stunning blue-skinned, curvy humanoid female with violet wavy hair, 2 dark red eyes, and smooth violet fur covering her private parts. If one looked at her from the front, they would be absolutely smitten as no monstrous qualities were displaced. However, the moment they looked at her back, their hearts would be chilled at the size of her abdomen attached to her tailbone. As Queen Dewebra sat in midair, crossing her muscular lean legs, another telepathic message resounded in her mind. This time, the voice was rough and rugged. "Queen Dewebra, everything is going according to the plan. The daywalkers will reach the harrowing forest in less than an hour. How about those early vermins, and especially the red-haired girl? Have they perished yet? No, they have already reached the center of the forest. Our ambushes fail every time like they have a great detection skill." Queen Dewebra frowned in displeasure. Seemingly sensing her dissatisfaction, the messenger hastily tried to appease her. "My queen, I will make sure they will be the first to die. We will move once the forest is sealed. No one and nothing will ruin your precious feast." "Nel Vass, words mean nothing to me," Queen Dewebra uttered icily. "Bring me results, or you will be the appetizer to my children." "Understood." Meanwhile, at the depths of the fallen shadow castle nest, a devilish humanoid goat with 2 curvy horns and a long shadowy goatee was seen sitting on a chair made out of rocks. He was tapping his finger on the armchair with an irked expression. Dewebra is merciless and loyal only to her hunger. She didn't hesitate to weaken my lord's nest and leak the information to the humans just to bait the follow-up Daywalker cleaners and feast on them. He thought to himself, cold sweat covering his back. She is a true demon, and if I were to mess up her feast, she won't hesitate to eat my crystallized seed. Nelvas was the only surviving intelligent Tier 3 nightcrawler from the Shadow Castle nest. He didn't survive because he was lucky. He betrayed his own nest after watching with his own eyes how Queen Uwibra manhandled his lord. In the world of nightcrawlers, there was no such thing as ultimate loyalty, only fear and respect for absolute strength. The moment Nelvas saw what happened to his lord, his respect turned into scorn, and he didn't hesitate to jump boats. While this had saved him from falling with the nest, his treatment under Queen Derwibra was even worse than a Tier 1 nightcrawler. That's because Queen Derwibra wasn't following the same nesting system as other nightcrawlers, where the nightcrawler's tier and his achievements defined his hierarchy standing within the nest. She was considered a lurker nightcrawler who hunted after both humans and nightcrawlers to fulfill her hunger, evolution, and her children's endless appetite. In other words, Nelvas understood that his worth in her eyes was next to nothing unless he proved himself. F***CK. If I can't even take out a bunch of kids, I might as well commit suicide. Nelvas' expression turned sinister. A while later, the sun was peeking over the horizon, offering its rays of hope and safety. Shia lifted her head and glanced at the sky, slowly being painted in lavender as the first light scattered over the hills. Mantis' party must have already reached the forest. Shia rubbed her tired eyelids. Let's take a rest for 2 hours. Use SR drops and get some sleep. I will take the first shift. Although daywalkers didn't need the medication to get a natural 8 hours of sleep due to their contracted nightcrawler's protection, they still relied on the SR pills heavily. After all, a 2-hour of induced coma that provided an equal rest to a 6-hour sleep was a true hack in life. Unfortunately, those free hours of the day didn't come free of cost. I can't believe we haven't found a single blood crystal flower. Jamal sighed as he sat down on the ground, feeling disheartened. Now, it will be more annoying with Mantis' army snooping everywhere. Sergio kicked a rock in irritation. Don't be discouraged, Shia replied calmly. We did find some seeds at least. If we get unlucky for an entire week straight, we will leave with the forest soil and give it to my family's botanist to grow me the flowers I need. For the rest of the materials, I will just find a way to buy them from the Sunstrike Agency. They must have an overstock. Wait, this isn't part of the deal. Arthur immediately protested. Even I know rare, graded natural treasures take months to grow at their optimal environment. You don't have to worry, your brother will get his recommendation. He made sure of it in the contract. Shia glanced at Levi, who was sitting alone against a tree in silence. Oh yeah, I forgot. After hearing this, Arthur's shitty memory acted up and made him remember the term she was referring to in the contract. The term for Shia to fulfill her part of the deal and help Levi participate in the upcoming assembly, even if his method hadn't been checked out yet. After all, it wasn't his problem if Shia failed to collect the materials in the next 2 months. You guys have drops or pills? Shia asked the Larson brothers. We have neither. Arthur lied through his teeth shamelessly. Unbothered, Shia threw a pill bottle to Arthur and said, Keep it with you. Whoa! Arthur's eyes gleamed in delight. We got 2 bottles in one day. Life is good. Then he went to feed his brother a pill, but he rejected it. It's okay. I'm not tired. I will take the first shift with Shia. Levi smiled. You should get some rest. You have been working tirelessly. This is nothing to what I do at the gym. Arthur smirked cockily as he flexed his massive muscles, annoying Jamal and Sergio with one move. Gym rat. Cocky asshole. They mumbled under their breaths, not wanting to look jealous in front of Shia. Then, they pulled their own SR drops and poured 1 drop on each eye. They entered their tents and waited for the medication to take effect. Just like being drugged with anesthesia, in less than 10 seconds, their eyes became too heavy to open. Once they were closed, their minds entered a mimicked deep sleep state. Since this state lasted for less than 2 hours, they could dream all they wanted, and the nightcrawlers wouldn't bother them even if they had no contracted nightcrawler to keep watch. Arthur soon joined them under his brother's insistence, leaving only Shia and Levi awake. Do you know anything about tracking? Shia inquired curiously. I know a bit. Levi answered. Good. Come help me throw Mantis off her back. Shia sneered. I know that two-faced prick. He will come rushing here to screw with us. Okay. Levi stood up, dusting his buttocks. Then, he asked one question. Is there a tracker within his party? That's the thing. He has a great tracker called Masai. Shia rubbed her eyebrows. He is rarely wrong. I see. Levi smiled serenely. Leave it to me then. Oh, you have something. Shia raised an eyebrow in intrigue. As Levi was sharing his plan with Shia, Mantis' massive raid finally reached the forest. The moment they stepped inside, they separated into their chosen squads, and each went to their designated location to avoid unnecessary conflicts. Mantis' main squad headed straight to the center of the forest. Shia's party must have already found something precious. We can't stop them, but we can slow them down. Mantis spoke coldly, though his feminine voice wasn't helping. If it was up to him, he wouldn't hesitate to eliminate her entire party and ensure that all the remaining treasures would go to his agency. That's because he wasn't the one funding this expedition, but his agency. However, as its leader, he would be compensated heavily for each natural treasure found. Unfortunately, it was difficult to make a move against another Daywalker when they were using the neural lens. Those lenses were recording everything each second and transmitting the data to the cloud services of their respectful holy region, ensuring that the Daywalkers behave even in the wastelands. The Daywalkers only agreed to such a breach of privacy due to the nocturnal contracts. The staff responsible for those cloud services were under strict contractual bindings to not peer through anyone's data unless an anomaly occurred, and a warranty was used to extract the data. Those were the precautions used to protect the Daywalkers from each other. But if there were one thing humans were masters of, it was finding ways to adapt and bypass the rules. Unfortunately for Mantis and his army, humans weren't the only ones with the cruel cunningness to harm their own race for selfish reasons. My queen, your food is preparing itself neatly on the plate. Malik shared with a sinister smile, her eyes turning pitch black for a split second. Danny felt a sudden chill on his back as he was riding his camel through the forest. When he turned around, he noticed Malik's sweet smile while she looked at him. Immediately, the smile washed away the chill, leaving him to smile back, feeling butterflies in his stomach. Are you comfortable? Danny asked while touching her arm. You have no idea. Malik replied sweetly as she leaned against his back. The same Daywalkers in their squad couldn't help but roll their eyes in annoyance and speed past them, incapable of taking in the cringe. Sometime later, Mantis and his main squad arrived at the location of the fallen Shadow Castle nest. It took them significantly less time than Shia's squad since they didn't dismount or stop once to search the traveled areas for the natural treasures. What a beautiful destruction, Mantis said in awe as he gazed at the ruined, closed-shut Nightcrawler's nest. Our Lord and his honored squad have ensured no nest revival occurs. One of his squad mates uttered proudly. While they couldn't see past the destroyed cave, they were certain that most, if not all, the underground network of the nest was completely obliterated. This was a must-have procedure in any expedition, since those caves and tunnels were considered Stygian gates and would attract the Nightcrawlers in great numbers. If any passing intelligent Nightcrawler noticed such a gathering of low-tiered Nightcrawlers and a perfectly sound tunneling network, they wouldn't hesitate to make it their new nest. Thus, both the government and the agencies had to ensure the removal of any chance of a nest revival. Suddenly, Mantis' attention was attracted to cleaned-up, half-covered footsteps leading to the northern side of the forest. Masai, look here. He called for the party's tracking expert to check the trail. A well-built, dark-skinned man with a great hairline and a pierced ear crouched next to the trail. Then, he looked in the direction of the footsteps with a deep frown. Not saying much, he followed the track for a few seconds and then came back with the same expression. What's the issue? Mantis inquired. The trail makes no sense. Masai clarified with a rugged tone. There are no additional marks left after the footsteps. No broken twigs, no crushed leaves, no disturbed bushes. Nothing. Are you saying Shia have left behind a decoy footprint to throw us off their trail? Mantis knitted his eyebrows. Either that, or they have cleared their path after leaving behind those footprints. Masai shook his head. No one that careful will leave behind such a footprint. It's a decoy, I am certain. Mantis smirked. I know that arrogant B*TCH will try everything in her power to keep me away from messing with her quest. If you say so. Masai stood up and looked around him. Spread out and search for any trails, and be careful not to ruin them. Mantis' main squad consisted of 10 daywalkers, including him and Masai. Thus, it shouldn't take them long to find clues with this much manpower. As expected, after 10 minutes of scrutinizing the entire place, a squad mate whistled twice, attracting everyone's attention to him. Mantis and Masai paid him a visit, and they were shown a small heap of leaves shattered and digging deep into the mud. While the footprint was barely visible as the wind had already ruined most of it, for experts like Masai, it was more than enough. 47 shoe size, one Masai murmured as he measured the hidden footprint. I believe I have seen a giant muscular dude in their squad. Yes, she did have 2 civilians accompanying her. Mantis nodded. One is blind, and one resembles a tank. This is it then. Masai gestured for the rest of the squad to gather. Then they followed closely behind him. While they moved slowly, Masai was continuing to find new tracks, always left behind by Arthur. The others are excellent at hiding their tracks, but there isn't much they can do about a walking, unexperienced behemoth. Masai shared while increasing his pace, sure that he was on the right path. Unfortunately, if there was a camera above the forest, and it panned out, they would be shocked to find themselves moving in a different direction from Shia's party. To be precise, Shia's party was moving in the direction of the first located footprints, heading north of the forest. Are you sure your strategy didn't make it worse? Sergio asked for the 100th time as he looked behind, paranoid that he would get jumped at any moment. You worry too much, Levi said calmly. If their tracker truly was great at his craft, he would easily notice that our original tracks are fake. This will drive them to search for additional tracks. Once they find my brother's naturally crafted footprint, they will believe our track is a decoy even more and will commit to the actual fake trail. As they go deeper and Masai sees the additional bits and pieces, he would become more certain until, on the other side, what's wrong? Mantis frowned after noticing that Masai had stopped and seemed a bit confused. Nothing, the way is here. Masai nodded and then continued heading deeper on the eastern side of the forest, though a sweat drop was falling down his forehead. Where's the rest of the trail? Did I lose their track? Did I miss something and take the wrong way? It can't be. Masai glanced above him. Did they go airborne or something? Shia does have an eagle as a mount. Or, wait a second, don't tell me the first track wasn't a fake decoy and that they were daring enough to place it and head in the exact same path. Masai soon shook his head, removing this foolish idea from his mind. I'm overthinking it. Shia isn't that shrewd or crazy to risk using reverse psychology on me when she has never met me before. A trail is bound to surface sooner or later. 10 minutes later, nothing. Where is it? Where is it? Meanwhile, Mantis and the rest of his squad were following his lead blindly, even chatting here and there like they were on a safari. Another 10 minutes. Where the F***CK is it? Have they teleported? There isn't even the aftermath of searching for the treasures. Alas, his failure was finally starting to show externally as he was losing his cool before his squad and mumbling all the time with sweat drenching his entire face. In the end, Mantis couldn't hold it and had to ask him, Masai, you know the way, right? Masai remained silent. Right? Mantis repeated with more emphasis, his expression turning slowly dark. Sorry, boss. I think we are lost. Masai confessed at last with a defeated expression. Silence engulfed the party, killing the chill chatter immediately. A moment later, Mantis snapped furiously. What the F***CK do you mean we are lost? I don't know. I genuinely don't know. Masai covered his face in shame. They must have left double decoys. One at the start, and the second one we committed on. After we went deeper, Shia must have taken everyone airborne one by one and dropped them off in a different location. Are you telling me we have been following a dead track for the last half an hour? Mantis gritted his teeth. Masai leaned against a tree in silence. A moment later, Motherf *CKR, a thunderous feminine curse traveled across the forest and forced nearby birds to, well, remain in their places as the curse carried not a hint of threat in it. Meanwhile, many kilometers away, Levi was on the final notes of his explanation. They will assume she is eagle was used before considering the first decoy to be a real trail, since it was simply too much of a risk to use reverse psychology when many other options are left. Levi smiled innocently as he held his brother's forearm, who was leading him at the back of the party. Everything you have said is heavily reliant on Masai's personality and tracking skills. Sergio frowned. How can you be so sure that he will do exactly what you prescribed when you have never seen the dude? Levi went silent for a moment before answering calmly. You don't need to see or know a person by heart to predict his actions. You just need to trust that he will stay true to his nature and set of skills. Shia, Sergio, and Jamal couldn't help but turn around and glance at Levi in a daze. As they watch him walk on uneven grounds and sometimes even trip and get pulled by his brother under his constant reminders, they didn't know how to react. But Bleeder knew how. Boy, your maturity is too creepy for your age. I hear that a lot. Levi chuckled.